Joel Blum. I am so excited about this episode. This is, I think, the first time we've ever had a guest on. Dare I say, I'm not quite sure, but I think this is the first guest that I've had on that I've been in a show with, which is pretty exciting. Me and Joel Blum did The Mystery of Edwin Drood together at AMT Theater a couple months ago, and it's funny, like when he walked into the whole rehearsal room. I did not understand the scope of his career, and I didn't do the thing that I usually do, which is like look up people who I'm in shows with. And then the night, I looked him up, and I was like, oh my goodness. Let's talk about Joel. Joel Blum is an incredible character actor. It's in his blood, man. His parents were both performers. His dad performed in vaudeville and taught him so much about that style and the crux to that humor. And his mother was a dancer, and she got to dance with Gene Kelly and Frank Sinatra, among many, many, many others. So he grew up a part of his life, in that scene in a way. That is some really interesting stories come out of here. But within his own career, he's a musical theater superstar, 2-time Tony nominee, first Tony nom for Showboat, and yes, that Showboat, the Hal Prince directed, Susan Stroman, former guest Susan Stroman, choreographed production of Showboat. Plus, he got a Tony nom for Steel Pier, which was another show that he did with Susan Stroman, and Scott Ellis directed that piece. And that was a Kander and Ebb piece that I still think is one of their lesser knowns, but one that's fascinating. And what they're doing there is really fascinating. So we get to chatting about that. And that wasn't the only Kander show he did, or only show he did with Susan Stroman, because he replaced Jim Walton, former guest of the podcast, Jim Walton, in And the World Goes Round off Broadway. And they worked together a bunch in Stardust. And so if you go back and watch our episode with Jim Walton, it ties into this in a way. Some of those stories tie in. But plus, he was in the original cast of 42nd Street alongside former guest Leroy Reams. I'm like shouting out all of our guests, but Joel has a connection to all of them in some capacity. And we get to talking about that story, that famous opening number story, about what is the truth behind why that curtain coming up and seeing those tap shoes is the iconic opening image of 42nd Street. So we get to talking about all those things. Joel has had a fascinating career. Fascinating. And there's so many gems here. I was so lucky to get the chance to chat with him because I got to ask him some of the questions I've been dying to ask him the whole time we've been in rehearsal. And now I'm like, Joel, let's talk. Tell me these things. I've been meaning to ask you this. You told that story in the dressing room. Can you expand on this? There's a lot of fascinating stuff, and I feel I got to ask him a whole lot. So I'm excited for you to see this episode. He's an absolute professional. I love Joel, and I think you will too. Here it is. This is Joel Blum's I Want to Be Like You. 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 Welcome to another episode of I Want to Be Like You with Elbi Cespedes, introducing Joel Blum. I'm so happy you were here when we first met at, so for those who don't know, we did The Mystery of Edwin Drood together. We just closed. And when I met you on the first day of rehearsal, I was like, oh, I want him to come on the podcast. So I'm really thrilled that you're here.
Was it how I looked, or was it...
Yeah, it was just based on your look. I think that you had a good podcast look. I always say if they don't have a good podcast look... No, yeah, you had the perfect look because people listen to this. No, okay.
Oh, good. It's fine. Yeah, I'm good for radio.
Yeah, right, exactly. So we start the podcast with the same question every time, and it is, who was your I Want to Be Like You when you were a kid?
Oh, gosh. Well, there's a lot of answers to that question because, I loved playing baseball. I was a baseball freak, and we were kids in the street, and we played in the street every day. Didn't matter what your bat was or what the ball was. If it was a tennis ball, a rubber ball, or a softball, or a hard ball, we'd play with whatever. And I grew up in South San Francisco, which was sort of on the way-ish to Candlestick Park, and where the Giants had just come in. This was 1957, and so baseball was really big at the time.
Oh.
So I wanted to be Willie Mays my whole life, and I was kind of Willie Mays. I played center field. I used to hold the bat just exactly like him.
Oh, wow.
And I was a good ball player. I got MVP of my both my high school teams, JV team and my varsity team. And but my coaches hated me because the last year in high school I didn't play because I was the lead in the musical in high school. Showbiz wise, there was another childhood guy. I think this is why I wanted to be an actor. There's two guys actually. George Reeves, who played Superman in the first original Superman series.
Oh.
Did you ever see it?
No.
The original Oh my God, The Adventures of Superman.
No, I've seen the original movie, but I've never seen the series.
Faster than a speeding bullet. More powerful than a locomotive. Able to leap tall buildings at a single bound. Look, up in the sky. It's a bird. It's a plane. No, it's Superman. Superman, strange visitor from another planet with powers and abilities far beyond those of mortal men. Superman, who can change the course of mighty rivers, bend steel in his bare hands, and who, disguised as Clark Kent, mild-mannered reporter for a great metropolitan newspaper, fights a never-ending battle for truth, justice, and the American way. That's
crazy that lived right there for you. That's wild.
So, yeah, you can cut it out if you want.
No, please. So you said George Reeves.
George Reeves, a famous George Reeves who, they made a movie about it, actually, about he had committed suicide, supposedly, a few years after he left the Superman show because he couldn't get any kind of work as an actor because everybody saw at that time
him as Superman.
Yeah. And he was a really good actor. But I remember in school, I used to fake having headaches so that my parents would take me to a doctor so I could wear glasses like Clark Kent, right? And so I actually got the glasses for these headaches so that, I can go in the hallways. This is like 4th grade, 5th grade.
Wow.
I go in the hallway, go and duck into a storage room to change in my Superman costume.
That's awesome.
The first thing he did was, before he would unloosen his tie and then he'd go into the door
to make sure no one saw.
Right, exactly. People who saw that will know that's what he did.
Right.
But ironically, it was crazy. I lied about the headaches to get the glasses.
Yeah.
But once I got the glasses, I started wearing them. And they gave me headaches.
Of course.
To wear them.
Of course.
So
yeah.
I said, Mom, I don't think I need the glasses anymore. Yeah, So.
That's funny. So you mentioned you grew up in San Francisco. What was your first exposure to theater? Were you seeing like touring shows or anything?
Well, theater, not much growing up, but my parents were performers. My dad was a vaudevillian. My mom was a nightclub performer. So and she wound up eventually having a dancing school. But I lived in Vegas like a few months out of the year because my mother was in a tap group that opened for Dean Martin at the Sands Hotel.
Whoa!
Right in the middle of the Rat Pack era. I mean, they could have been filming Ocean's 11 at the time. Actually.
That's crazy.
Yeah, and we lived in a hotel called the Bali High, which was in back of the Desert Inn, and these memories are just so vivid because at that time it was 59. There was no all-night television ever anywhere except in Vegas. Oh. Vegas would have TV all the way through to like 8 a.m.
Wow.
And my mom would do her show at night, and then after the show they all went out. With all these great Buddy Hackett, Shecky Green, Sinatra, all of them. They would all go out and drink, until about 8 in the morning. And my brother and I, and my dad, of course, my dad was from a different era, but he knew how to gamble and all this kind of stuff. And anyway, he would take home a whole bunch of silver dollars that he had won on the slots or whatever, and he'd give us like a stack of 5. And by the end of the run, we'd have this huge stack of silver dollars.
Oh
right
my
next to the bed.
gosh!
It was great, and it's funny because years later, when I was with Debbie Reynolds in her nightclub act in the '70s, we played the Desert Inn, and we stayed at the same motel that I lived in when I was with my kids. I went, I can't believe this. Like 20 years later, and I'm back in the same little hotel.
That's crazy. Yeah. How long did you live there?
In Vegas?
Yeah.
Well, there would be like 1 month runs, and then we go back to San Francisco, and I go back into the second grade and have to kind of get myself back in, and then we go out again. Like I think twice out of the year for
That's
a couple
so
months.
wild. And so, why San Francisco? If your parents, was there a lot of work there? I mean, especially if your dad doing vaudeville, was he doing it in San Francisco?
Well, yeah, they both were San Franciscans. My dad was a lot older. He was 45 when I was born. Was born in New York. Parents, immigrant Jews that came over at the turn of the century. Grew. I think they lived in New York for about 7 or 8 years in the I think in the Lower East Side.
Okay.
And or possibly on the Upper East Side. I'm not sure where actually Groucho Marx and they lived. But my dad was born in 1906. And his father was a builder, a home builder, a carpenter. So they decided to move out to California because after the 1906 earthquake in San Francisco, big, huge earthquake, he said, "Let's go. We'll go out there. We'll build some homes. I'll set up my business. We'll make a lot of money, And that's how he talked. He was a very Yiddishy old guy. I never met him, but my dad did a great impression of him.
This is your grandfather?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so they settled out in an area called Silver Avenue, but it had every ethnic group in it. Mexican, Chinese, Irish, Jewish, everything in it. And they called it Out the Road. Now, anybody who knows San Francisco or was a real San Franciscan from that time knows what Out the Road was. And, there should be a book about it.
Yeah,
actually.
That's wild.
Out the Road.
And so then were you living there primarily, or were you traveling a lot? I mean, you mentioned Vegas, but were you traveling?
No, primarily Bay Area. And then my mother had a dancing school. They were both San Franciscans, so that was their home.
Yeah.
And there was a big nightclub scene in San Francisco in the 40s.
Really?
Oh, huge.
Is there still?
Well, different kind of nightclubs. I mean, in those days, like if you see in the old movies, people would go supper clubs. They would go and they would have dinner, and there would be a big band, and they'd go dancing, and there'd be acts, and things like that. And there was a famous club in San Francisco called Bimbo's 365 Club, and then there was also the Gay 90s. There was all these, there were tons of places. And anyway, my mother was 16 years old. From my father was the Jewish side of the family. My mom's was Christian Scientists. And her parents were devout Christian Scientists. And her mother had a stroke when she was just like a sophomore in high school. And the father refused any kind of medical attention for the mother.
Oh, wow.
People would come to the house. They would send doctors to the house. And if you know anything about Christian Science, they don't believe in that. So knock on the door and said, "Hello, I understand your wife has a stroke, and I'm a doctor." And the father would say, "We don't want any." Would close the door. So my mother would see her mother. One day she could talk, the next day she couldn't talk, the next day she couldn't move. It was very, very traumatic for her.
That's crazy.
And so she had to quit school and work. And she had already at this point, well, this is all in the book, by the way. But so forget everything I say today because it's going to be in a book and you can read it.
Right.
But she had to work, and she already knew how to tap, and she had a really good friend named Tommy Conine, who eventually she did that tap act with Dean Martin, who was already in the nightclub scene, and he tried to get her in as a chorus girl at 16 years old, couldn't do it. But there was one lady named Jean Devlin who directed all the shows in San Francisco, was the choreographer and director. Long story short, she was given parts like playing a tree, and just be on stage going like that. She would get work, and she also, when during the war, she had an act with high school friends, and they did a dance act together, and then they would perform at USO, and she was very involved in the USO, and so after they did their act for all the Army guys before they were to ship out, all the guys would line up, so that they could jitterbug with her. They all took turns jitterbugging with my mom.
That's crazy. That's so wild.
Yeah.
Did you ever meet Sinatra and Dean Martin?
I met Dean Martin.
Really? How old were you?
I was in the second grade. And there was one night, Dean Martin was very family oriented, and there was he did a special show for all the people that worked in the casino.
Wow.
For all and their family. All the people who worked associated with the Sands. It was at the Sands Hotel, and they were associated with the showroom. And so everybody. So there was one night, and my parents bought me like a little suit jacket, and I was sitting there, and it was all families. But I was sitting there at the table, and Dean Martin would be doing his act, where he'd try to get up on the piano and slip down and all. And I go, oh, that Dean, isn't he something? Like I was like a kid in second grade, and I was going, this is just wild. Is this wild? Oh, geez, And then I take a sip of my, Shirley Temple. Oh yeah, it's just something,
That's so funny. Were you just imitating what you saw?
I was, I was like, all through school, I tried not to be me. I was always like some character,
right? Right.
And when my mother did recitals, and my dad did an act in vaudeville with a guy named Pinky Lee, who was like, bless you, bless you.
Sorry.
No, I forgot what I was going to say. No, a guy named Pinky Lee, who had the first kiddie show on television, the Pinky Lee Show. Look it up. But they did an act after my dad. His sister passed away, and that was his partner in vaudeville. So he couldn't find another partner because they were just innately a dance team together. So he joined up with Pinky Lee, who needed a straight man, and my dad played straight. Well, when we did recitals for her dancing school, and then we also played, because she was still connected with the USO, we played military hospitals, aircraft carriers, and things like that. I did the act that my dad did with Pinky.
No way.
I was the funny guy, and my dad was the straight man.
That's wild.
But can you imagine, like a 6-year-old kid, doing these jokes that were really ridiculous? Any more at home like you? Yeah, 6 on my mother's side. What's on your father's side? A mustard plaster. Things like that. Just old jokes, but it worked. Yeah. It worked because I was like a cute kid or something.
Well, I was going to ask you, what is the did you always feel like this was in your blood? Was this always something that you were going to do? I mean, you mentioned that you played baseball, but aside from that, were you ever considering doing anything else? This is like so inbred in you.
It wasn't a conscious decision until high school. I was a junior in high school, and I was still doing shows. Although I said, when my mom said, "Do you want to perform?" I said, "No, I don't want to do it anymore. I don't want to do that anymore." I was like 14,
right?
But I'd already been doing variety shows since I was 6 years old,
right?
Right. And doing comedy with my father. That's where I learned to be completely relaxed on stage.
Yeah.
because not only each time I did it, I realized, oh, I'm getting laughs, and if it goes off, I said, wow, we can get ourselves back on, and all of a sudden a light went up over my head and said, oh, I can do whatever I want up here. We could always get back on it.
Yeah.
But plus, I had my father there with me. So, I mean, I felt so safe on stage.
Right.
But I already was comfortable on stage. So anyway, my brother's girlfriend at the time was doing the lead in My Fair Lady, and she was taking tap for my mother. And she asked my mom if would Joel want to play, because we're looking for a Freddie. We can't find a Freddie. And she said, I'll tell him. And I said, no, I don't want to do that. She said, do it, Joel. I think you should do it. Whatever my mom said, I would always just do, because she just had a way of teaching and influencing people. She was a brilliant teacher. I said, all right. And I did Freddie. And then, boom, a light went off. I went, wow, it's not just me up here performing. I can be a character. I can play another character.
Right.
I can be Freddie. And we're talking, and we're actually talking, and it's not just me and Dad doing jokes. It's I'm actually playing off of other people and being another person. And that like clicked, because I also, because of George Reeves, Superman, and also Perry Mason, what's his name? Raymond Burr. I loved that show too. I watched Perry Mason. I wanted to be a lawyer, because of course every lawyer does, talks to the jury and does that kind of stuff. And it's a chance to talk, but now I'm on stage and go, wow, I could talk to another person, and I'm already relaxed. I didn't consciously think this, but I was already relaxed and comfortable looking at people and talking to them and projecting my voice and everything like that. It was easy as pie, and it came off great, because my drama teacher was my English teacher, and he thought I was an idiot because I was a horrible student. But then when he saw me on stage, he went, holy crap, wow.
Right.
And so I already had a presence on stage. And having done that part, Freddie in My Fair Lady, everything clicked for me. And that's why I didn't play baseball my senior year.
Wow.
Because
you were doing Freddie.
Wow,
that's crazy. So then you went to college at College of Marin, right, in California?
Marin.
What was your major? What were you going for? Were you going for? I mean, was
theater.
there was a theater major at the time?
There was there was a great guy named James Dunn, who was actually the artistic director for the California Shakespeare Festival. But he was from Marin, and he had built up this drama department from scratch, basically. And he was so good at raising money and stuff like that. He raised enough money to build this beautiful arts center, this performing arts thing with a gorgeous theater. When you were in high school, you'd go to the College of Marin and see incredible productions. It was at the time before Reagan was our governor, where there was a lot of money for the arts. And so they were able to build these amazing sets. They had money for costumes. It was like Broadway level productions.
Wow.
And so you'd go there to see these incredible productions of recent Broadway shows or plays or musicals and stuff. And it was like, I was doing Petruchio and Tammy the Shrew at Drake High School. And I'd go there, and they wound up doing a production of Tammy the Shrew as a Western.
Oh.
And they did it in their little black box there, but they turned it into an old saloon. Oh. It was one of the greatest productions I'd ever seen. And there were a lot of really great actors in it. And I went to see it. I went, oh, wow. And I went with this girl, and I go, God, that's really good. I could never do that. She said, yes, you can. This girl says, this girl I went to high school with, you could do that. You're doing that already. I went, really? I didn't necessarily realize how much I already knew,
right?
At the time. But so Yes, I auditioned for they did a complete Greek tragedy. They did a thing that John Lewin adapted, the Oresteia, the original first play ever written for the Greeks. They called it The House of Atreus. And so I did that summer program. And it was an amazing thing. And it was, they built a huge set, a huge wall. I mean, it was unbelievable. And then I was in the drama department, and along with me at the same time was Robin Williams. Robin Williams was in my class.
Whoa!
Yeah,
that's crazy.
Yeah, he grew up in Marin.
That's funny. So did you guys do shows together?
Tons of them.
Oh my gosh! Now I need to know, what shows did you do with Robin Williams?
Well, we did that Greek tragedy, but we also did. The first thing that I auditioned for and got at College of Marin was an amazing production of Midsummer Night's Dream, and I played Puck.
Oh, nice!
And Robin was a spear carrier.
Oh my gosh, that's crazy.
Yeah. But they had built a replica of the Globe Theater stage.
Wow!
So it looked like an Elizabethan thing, it had an upper thing, and it was amazing, and it was a great production. And at least in the college, I became a star at the college. And then the next production was Cabaret, and I played the MC in Cabaret.
Wow! And who was Robin in that?
He was in the chorus.
That's crazy. That's crazy.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Then we did like an evening, and that was on the main stage. We did an evening of absurd theater, which was, and we did The Bald Soprano, and I did a Beckett thing called Act Without Words, which was basically mime. But it had a sort of what do they call it? An existentialist kind of theme to it, And then there was another play called, I think, Three in a Boat or something like that.
Yeah.
But Robin did, and this was where Robin kind of like broke through at the college. He did The Bald Soprano, and he did, all the stuff that we know him to do. He was given free rein.
Right.
He had, there was a wonderful thing in San Francisco at that time called The Committee, which was essentially the San Francisco version of Second City.
Oh, interesting.
Okay? And it came about right around the same time that Second City came about. And Robin, who loved Jonathan Winters, and his mom was very, very smart and had a great sense of humor, took him to Saturday improv classes when he was a young kid. And he took improv classes at the Committee every weekend.
Wow.
So he was developing into an improv genius.
Right. Right.
And sorry.
No.
He was a really great guy. He was very sweet person. And if you tried to have a conversation with him, in the hallway at the theater, you talk to him and he'd be listening, and all of a sudden you get 10 seconds in and he'd wind up bouncing off the walls doing bits and crazy stuff. Yeah. It was like that. But he always came from a very sweet, loving place, and a good guy, and everybody liked him, and I think he also could never be mean. He always wanted to be liked by everybody.
Right. Did you guys stay in touch after college?
A little bit. I went to NYU, and he went to Juilliard.
Okay.
And he was in the accelerated program, a 2-year program.
Gotcha.
I think maybe he was in the 4-year, but he left before he didn't finish. I didn't finish at NYU either.
Gotcha.
Gotcha. I just went 1 year.
Yeah.
But and then I came back, and then I got my equity card like that, and I started working.
Gotcha. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
But anyway, he in Bald Soprano, he was like
Blew up.
And then after that, we did Twelfth Night, and he played Malvolio. I was Sebastian.
Wow, nice.
We had done the Scottish play.
Crazy.
And I played a small role in that, and he played, one of the bigger roles.
Nice.
And, yeah.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah.
That's amazing. I was going to ask you about your first time coming to New York. Do you remember, was that when you were going to NYU?
Yeah.
Yeah? Oh, wow. Mm-hmm. And so did you, well, you know what, you mentioned something, and we always ask this question, is like, what was the job that got you your equity card? And you mentioned that you got your equity card shortly after leaving NYU. What was the job that got you your equity card?
Godspell. The
National Tour of Godspell.
National Tour of Godspell.
Nice.
It had been out for a while, and then it sat down in San Francisco for like over a year.
Wow.
And then when I came back in the summer, they were looking for a replacement to understudy Judas and Jesus, and also the guy who sings All Good Gifts and We Beseech Thee and all that kind of stuff. So and I was already used to driving in from Marin County. My parents, we wound up moving to Marin, which is a beautiful area, by the way. And I would come in for auditions a lot, when I was in high school even.
Yeah.
So I would always check the listings.
Yeah.
And I said, I want to go in for that. So I went in, and they wanted to have, it was like kind of story theater and very improv-y. And they said, okay, and they liked my song. And I said, okay, put together one of the parables from Matthew and just act it out doing different characters.
Wow.
Yeah. And so I went home and I worked on it, and I did Foghorn. I want to tell you, my son. I say, pay attention when I'm talking to you, son. Like that. And I do all these cartoon characters. I do Edward G. Rum. Yeah, see. I got a finger and a thumb, see. Like that. And so I put all that in this parable of the what is it? The
Matthew, you said? Yeah.
The parable was the wandering boy, the prodigal son. Okay. The wandering boy. And so I did that, and it came off really well, and I got it, which was great. And so I contacted NYU, said I'm not coming back, and then the head of the department said, "Oh, what? You're not coming back? You're not going to come back?" I said, "Yeah, no, I'm a professional now. I'm a pro. I don't need to go to acting school."
Right.
And the department was in a lot of disarray at the time. The only great thing about it, the wonderful, thank God thing about it, was Olympia Dukakis was my teacher.
Wow.
My acting teacher the second semester. And my first semester teacher, I won't mention his name, but didn't get me at all.
Okay.
Olympia just got me, because I believe in the concept of moment to moment to moment, micro moment to moment, and she said, You're quite bent, aren't you, Joel? I said, yeah, you're quirky. And she just liked me, thank God.
Yeah.
But she had to leave in the middle of the semester to do a play, and I just thought the whole thing was very disorganized.
Sure, but this was you getting your master's now, because you already went to college in California.
Well, College of Marin was considered a junior college, a 2-year college.
I see.
So really, this, I had already gotten all my credits.
I see.
But this was a sort of NYU's at Second Avenue at Tisch,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Gotcha. What was I going to ask you? So you guys were on tour for how long with Godspell?
Well, we didn't go on tour. It was a sit down. It was the tour that had I guess finished their tour and then stayed in San Francisco. I see. I ran with it. I joined the company. I ran with it for 6 months. Then it closed. And then I just did a kind of like a Smothers Brothers act with my brother. He played guitar, and
cool.
We played cabarets and nightclubs in San Francisco.
Yeah, very cool.
But before we killed each other because we didn't get along, I left, and then another company of Godspell came in and didn't play the Curran Theater where the big one was. Mm-hmm. They played the Marines Memorial Theater, which was a smaller kind of off-Broadway house kind of thing. Mm-hmm. And so we played that, And I did another 3 months in that. And there were a lot of very, very big people. Bart Braverman, who wound up doing, I think, a TV series with, I can't think of his name, but and then Melanie Mayron, who was a film actress, also was in that production. And then we all decided after that closed to move down to Los Angeles.
Wow, very cool. So how long after that did you wound up making your Broadway debut?
Well, that was like 70, let's see, I was 74. I was in Los Angeles, LA, and couldn't get arrested as an actor. And I just spent most of my time taking dance classes just to keep in shape.
Sure.
I already knew how to tap.
Yeah.
But I never took a ballet class, never took a jazz class, and I always liked jazz. So I started getting really into that.
Yeah.
And one day I was at the Dupree Dance Academy. I guess this was 75 or 6.
Yeah.
I was walking out and I was looking in. There was another dance class going on that had a big window and you could look into the class. And there was Debbie Reynolds, the famous Debbie Reynolds, auditioning for her Vegas act. And I was just standing outside watching. I was in my stretch jumpsuit, and I was looking. This lady comes out, who I find out later is Debbie's assistant, and she went to school with her actually. Margie Duncan. She comes out, comes right up to my face, and says, "Who else wants to audition like that?" I went, "Me."
And there was no one else there.
There was people around, but she went right up to me for some reason. I don't know why. And I went and I had long hair and, was, kind of cute, I guess. And I went in the room and they were doing a lot of it was Ron Lewis, who was an amazing choreographer. Just amazing. He choreographed the act with Liza Minnelli, but he was a Vegas choreographer. He was a former Jack Cole dancer and stuff. Anyway, so he was in there and they were doing a lot of well, I pulled this trick that I did at auditions when I went for dance auditions. While I was waiting for other people to do their thing and they were doing, I'd go off to the side and I do a handstand because I was an acrobat also when I was a kid.
Gosh.
I pulled a handstand and I just held a handstand and then I opened my legs and then I went to like that, like that. Boom. Nobody was looking at the people auditioning. They were all looking at me doing the handstand. And it was just under the guise of warming up, right?
Right.
I went and I did all the the rock stuff, which was all really great. And then they had me tap and I aced the tap.
Yeah.
And that was it. And I was out there changing my shoes and she came right up to me. "You got the job."
Oh my gosh. That's crazy.
So 76, I wound up, to answer your question, I wound up doing Debbie's act. And we were not only rehearsing for her Vegas act at the Desert Inn and the Frontier and the Riviera, but at the end of the year, we were coming to Broadway with it.
Wow.
So we played the Minskoff Theater.
Crazy.
Came to New York, stayed at this incredible hotel on 57th Street, which was basically condos. We all had our own, bedroom, living room, kitchen. I mean, it was unbelievable. Gosh. And we ran for 3 months. It was not a huge hit, and it really upset Debbie because she had been a big hit in Irene a few years earlier. And she thought she'd come back, as the conquering hero and come in and do her nightclub act there too.
Right.
But it was in 1976. It was right during the bicentennial. And there was so many bicentennial celebrations that people in New York were absolutely sick of bicentennial.
Okay.
Well, we did a 20-minute bicentennial number about America, and people were saying, "Oh, not another one, not another one." But it was a great number. We had these huge long benches that we moved, configured. We did the flag thing that they do.
Yeah.
They throw flags up in the air. We learned how to do that.
Wow.
We do 2 flags, like that. The whole thing that you learn. I mean, it was a brilliant number, and it really was challenging to us as dancers. And then we also did a number from Irene with hats, and every hat trick in the book was in that. That's one of the reasons I know how to do hat tricks. One of the
Really?
reasons. Yeah. from that number.
Because I was going to say, I thought you learned a lot of the hat tricks that you do from your dad.
Actually, not from my dad, from my mom's partner, Tommy Conine. Who,
right.
Yeah,
Yes,
when
yes.
I was like 8 years old, I started taking tap from him.
Yeah.
The most brilliant tap dancer, I think, ever.
Mm,
Doing things that Savion Glover is doing now, but back then.
interesting.
And even bits that Tommy did, Savion Glover does, but I'm not going to.
Wow, interesting.
But anyway, I grew up with that guy.
Wow.
And he taught me how to do. He taught me this one. He taught me, that one.
Right. Gosh, I wish I had a hat here for you. And it's funny. I had this idea too, where I was like, oh, I should have to bring this hat for Joel, and I completely forgot it today. But
I would have brought one if you told me. Yeah. So I learned that from him, but then in the Irene number, I learned a whole bunch of new ones. So
yeah, that's crazy. That's awesome. So how long did you mention that Debbie's act was in New York? 3 months?
About 3 months. It started. October. I guess we opened in October and we ended in December. So,
that's crazy.
Yeah,
that's amazing. And so was that was the tail end of the tour?
No. Then we booked the act all over the country. We toured the country after that. We went to Cannes in France, and we went.
Oh my gosh!
Yeah. We went all over the place in Canada.
Wow! Yeah. Oh my goodness, that's amazing.
It was a great thing. And then also I was featured in her HBO special. We did a Liberace special. We did 2 Bob Hope specials.
Wow!
I mean, and then we also we danced on the Sonny and Cher show.
Whoa!
I did a lot of TV dancing when
I want to ask you. I mean, this is a silly question, but I'm kind of like, what was Debbie Reynolds like?
Oh, she was great.
Yeah,
she was a really, really good person. Tough business lady.
Yeah,
she didn't take any crap. But she was also a wonderful person to be on stage with. Mm-hmm. Unlike, say, if you were a dancer for Anne Margaret or for Juliette Prowse, you were a dancer. You're one of the backup dancers.
Sure.
But if you had a talent in one area, if you could do something, like I was very good at the robot thing, and I could do this thing. And we put together a bit with her as Mae West and me as a robot that turned into a kissing machine.
That's funny.
And then at one point the machine broke down, and then I would do this whole thing, and there was a great drummer, Frank Hudeck, who was an amazing drummer, and he and I would just go for like literally maybe a minute and a half or 2 minutes of just, and then at one point I go, and he did. I'm
no, you're good.
He did some of the greatest like sound effects in the background, and then Debbie would press a button on my nose. I think she'd press my nose, and then I'd come back. I'd reset, and then we'd end the number. It was a great bit, and I had already left the act, and she called me up and said, "I'm doing an HBO special. I'd like you to come back into the act and do this bit."
Right. Right.
So
that's amazing.
Yeah, but she was great on stage, and I also did impressions. Because as Mae West, we'd be reporters asking questions, and Rich Little, the famous impressionist, was I'm talking too much.
No, not at all.
Rich Little, the famous impression, was in the audience. He's an impressionist at the time, the top guy, and they had the same agent, Seymour Heller, who was a famous show business agent. Mm-hmm. And all the guys say, because I had done W.C. Fields. Mm-hmm. Do you know who W.C. Fields is? Oh. Yes, my little chickadee. Yes, like that. A famous movie called My Little Chickadee. I think that's the name of it. I don't know. With him and Mae West. Okay. So all the guys knew I did that. I said, "Hey, you should do it when you ask your question, Miss West, do W.C. Fields." No, they were trying to get me in trouble. That's what they were trying to. I said, "Do it." He said, "Oh, no." They shouldn't even put it in my head, because when it got to my question, I went, "Oh, Miss West, yes." And Debbie went, you could look at her face. She looked at me like this. And then I asked the question, and then she played along with it, and she actually kind of made fun of me a little bit, which was perfect. You
Yeah.
know? And then after the show, Rich Little came into the dressing room, her dressing room, and I'm not sure if I was there or not, but she said, "So what'd you think of our WC?" Well, it wasn't that accurate, but it was a very funny moment. Yeah, yeah.
That's funny.
Yeah.
That's funny. I want to ask you about 42nd Street because this was pretty shortly after, only a couple years after. And I wanted to ask you specifically, starting off with what the audition for 42nd Street was like. Do you remember?
Well, it was, it was very tappy.
Yeah.
I'd done a couple of shows with Gower prior to that.
Oh, really? What shows?
Debbie introduced me to Gower. Debbie did an amazing production of Annie Get Your Gun in Los Angeles at the Dorothy Chandler. Harb Presnell, who she did the movie Molly Brown with. Gavin MacLeod, you know who he is, right?
No, I don't.
The Love Boat.
Oh,
he was
okay.
Captain Steubing on the Love Boat.
Okay.
And major TV career. Art Lund, who was the original Sky Masterson in Guys and Dolls, I believe. I mean, all these great people. A little guy named Dottie Potter who played Pawnee Bill, and he was hysterical.
Wow.
He was this tall, and they were waiting for Pawnee Bill to show up, and it's usually just like a guy, but he came in and, "Hey, is Pawnee Bill here yet?" No. And then he shows up and he's like this big, and he goes, "Hi, how are you? Hi, how are you?" The funniest guy. And Art Lund and Harb Presnell are huge guys, and Art Lund just tapped him on the shoulder, and he almost fell, but he had like a riding crop, and he put the riding crop in Art Lund's belt and pulled himself back up. Such a great bit. Yeah,
that's funny.
And he was like the original Snoopy in Your Good Man Charlie Brown.
Wow.
Way back when.
That's funny.
But I met those guys. But anyway, what was the question?
The audition for...
audition for... So I'd worked with Gower before. I did that and another
Annie Get
show.
Your Gun, you said, yeah.
Annie Get Your Gun. And so when I left the act and I moved to New York, it was my second month here. I was doing an off-Broadway show in the 45th Street Theater where we did our show.
Oh, that's what you... Yeah. I was going to ask you about that. Okay, yeah.
First thing I ever did in New York after, and I went to the audition, and while I was stretching in the room before you go into the room, Gower walks through the room, and he looked at me, he went, "Oh, good to see you. I'm glad you're here," because he liked me a lot.
Wow,
he liked me a lot.
Yeah.
Go in the room, and then Gower really wasn't a tapper. It was Randy, but it was also oh, Jesus.
Was it Kate?
No. Oh, give me a second. I've got to get it. Oh gosh, she's going to kill me. It's not you. It's my brain.
No.
It'll come to me.
Look it up if anything, Angel.
They were the two that really did the steps. Gower choreographed and the concepts and everything.
Imagery.
Yeah. So it was a lot of actually it was the opening number, I think, that we learned.
Right.
Because that was just full on time steppy kind of tap.
But from what I understood, Leroy came on the show, this is already a year ago, but he came on the show and he was discussing about how a lot of it was pretty standard tap moves. It wasn't anything that was, you guys were doing time steps, you guys were doing, things that you would know, you know what I mean? It was very
easy stuff. Easy stuff. I mean, it wasn't, none of the show wasn't ever intricate tap, except for, oh God.
Was it Where in the Money?
Can't think of her name. No. The Anytime Annie.
Oh.
God. Please forgive me. I can't.
You're totally good. Look it up.
The age. Her stuff was
complicated.
Was complicated because she was just a brilliant tap dancer. I will come up with the name, but everything else was just basically time step stuff, stamp, touch.
Right.
Which was a little disappointing for me, but it worked. It worked for the show.
Right. Well, did you find it?
Karen Prince.
Karen Prunzik.
Karen Prunzik.
Karen, I love you. Please forgive me. It's you know, it's the brain.
So I want to get this straight because there's a lot of, I feel like there's some misconception about this opening number in 42nd Street because Leroy told the story. I always ask the question about how that concept came about, the curtain coming up and seeing the, you know what I mean? And Leroy had said that apparently there was a stage manager or something that told this story about the curtain got stuck. Leroy said that was not true.
That is true.
Originally, there was a scene there, like in the movie, at the audition.
Yeah.
And then the number happened after that.
Yeah.
And Gower said one day, he said, I don't know why the hell I'm bothering with this first scene. They all came here to see tap dancing, so let's just do the number.
Right.
It was as simple as that. And so that's what they did, just with the piano. It wasn't the full orchestra. And that's when the curtain came up. And then Gower had said, I know that the stage manager said one time out, the curtain got stuck and that's how that... No. Didn't know it was. And that's a good story, but that's not the way. What happened, nothing happened by accident in the Gower Champion show. Trust me now. The curtain may have gotten stuck. But Gower, I was there. He said, start the number. I want to hear the taps. Now slowly raise the curtain, but take a pause so I can just see the feet. Come and meet those dancing feet.
Right.
And then take the curtain up. That's the way it was.
Well, I don't know. Maybe Leroy knew something, an inside thing that. But we had always all through DC when we did our tryout, the curtain would always just come up. Okay. One night, whether it was in DC or in New York during previews, I don't remember. But one night it stalled. And it was just like that. And we were doing our number. We're from the other side. You guys were watching it out there, but we were dancing. Nobody told us that was going to happen, and it stayed like that for a while. And we thought, shit, should we stop dancing, or what do we? And then it finally came back up. Now, I don't know what Leroy said, and maybe he knows more than me because he did. He did always get the inside information on everything.
Sure.
But as far as I knew, I had asked the stage manager, and he said, it got stuck, I asked people about it.
And so then did Gower just like it and said, this is how it's staying?
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
See, that's funny, because then when Leroy was on here, he was like, I know the stage manager said, he goes, it's a cute story, but that's not true. He had said that was just always the intent. That apparently, so in the movie, it starts with the scene, and that was, it was like, this is not, they wanted it to start with a bang, but I don't know. But I guess, if you're saying you remember it this way.
Well, nobody knew that was going to happen. That's what I'm saying.
Right.
Because when we were doing it, we were all looking at each other. We were doing our steps, and we were
right. Why is the curtain not coming up all the way?
Like that. Yeah. And
Funny.
we had done it a long time already without that, and then all of a sudden. But
did it happen for the first time in DC, or was it on Broadway?
I can't. I would say on Broadway.
Gotcha.
During previews.
Wow. How fitting.
Now Leroy could,
who knows? Who knows? Yeah, right. I was gonna ask you. So you were in 42nd Street. You were ensemble and understudy Billy, right?
Yeah.
Did you ever wind up going on for Billy?
Oh yeah.
You did.
Oh yeah. But not for a long time.
Right.
Leroy never took any shows off.
Yeah.
It was like maybe a year and a half, or maybe even 2 years.
Wow.
And I think it happened when the whole principal cast was flown to Japan to do a concert version of the show.
Interesting.
So they were in Japan for like 2 weeks, and I was on the whole 2 weeks.
Wow, that's cool. Yeah. That's amazing.
And then after that, I think Leroy had left at one point, and then whoever took over for him, I wound up going on a few times too.
Gotcha. Because Jim did it too.
Yeah, Jimmy did it,
but not at the same time as you.
No, we're not in the same.
Gotcha. I was going to ask you about working with Gower and Randy and Karen in that capacity. Is like, did you guys
Karen
know
Baker.
Karen Baker. There it is.
And you know what? A lot of the style of doing the tap was Karen Baker.
Gotcha.
Randy was very, very just, no arms.
Really?
But Karen really put a lot of all this stuff, all this stuff. And pick your knees up when you're doing the time step, very high, And I frankly, I hated that, personally.
Sure.
But I said,
it's hard.
Okay, you want your knees up, like that. So I said, oh, you want knees? Okay, I'm going to give you knees. And I would just go way overboard, way overboard. Because, and this is either good or bad.
Sure.
People who've worked with me know this. But I want to stand out. And I was right in the center. There was a sort of a front row, but I was like a little recessed back from the, but I was pretty much in the front row there, right in the center. And, all this stuff, it's just so corny to me, but it actually does work. It worked great.
Sure.
Some people were doing, but you had to snap your hands like that. But, she said, we want more knees. I went, okay, you want knees? You're going to get knees, and I just went super big.
Went ham. Yeah.
Super big.
Hey, go for it. There was something else that Lever mentioned that I thought would be interesting to bring up, and it was I'm not going to pull up the clip. Don't worry. No, but it was the idea. Yeah. No, it was the idea that there was something about the silence working with Gower, where he would get silent. So, something about like the concentration and the focus of putting all these pieces together. Do you remember anything about that?
Oh yeah. Gower would like. He had a lot of mannerisms that were kind of fun,
Yeah.
I really love it. He'd like go like this, and he would rub his like this. I mean, can I get up?
Yeah, sure.
He'd go. I don't like it. Not you, me. Not you, me. Like that,
Interesting.
He really loved dancers. I mean, he kept saying to us all, this show's about the dancers. This show's about you guys. It's not about the story or anything. It's all about you. And he collaborated with you. And the reason why he liked me a lot is because he had an idea for things. Like in Annie Get Your Gun, there was this wonderful number, the No Business Like Show Business number is usually just sung by the three leads and then it's over.
Right.
He turned it into a dream ballet. They sang 2 choruses and then boom, there was this like blank stage with a psych in the background and all these, circus characters came out on a line in a stop time. Dun, 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 dun. And Debbie went over there, saw a hand, and she just pulled it out. And when she pulled it out, this line of crazy people. Anyway, it would take too long to describe that thing. But there was one point where I played a minstrel man with a big hat and, thing. And I said, Joel, I want you to come out and do a little tap step or something like that and set this up so that when Debbie sees you, she follows you. Okay. So he had me do this little tap step. I went out and I did this really elaborate thing. And he said, too much. Okay. And this was in the theater already. We're in the theater, and I said, okay. And so I went out and I did another thing. He said, nope, too much. But he collaborated with his dancers. So one time I went, oh, I remember this thing we did in Debbie's act. I came out and I did this. I jumped up in the air and I did a double flap, which sounded like a pickup. But I jumped up in the air and went, brup, like that, and I was, brup. And then I went, I just did a kickball change and I crossed my foot, took my hat off and I did a flip, like the hat. And then I put the hat on like this and sat down. It was kind of a Fosse move,
Yeah.
Like that. And I love it. I love it. He said, I'm sorry.
Wow.
Too loud.
No, you're good.
And then, and then he staged the rest of the number. And all that stuff. Opening night in San Francisco, everybody was warming up in back of the curtain.
Yeah.
And he comes right up to me and he says, that little thing you do with a hat? It's my favorite thing in the show. Favorite thing in the show. And all the other dancers were watching, and my heart just went boom, boom.
Yeah.
It was just so he loved performers, and he was a performer, and he had no ego about it. He was kind enough to let you know. He was the greatest.
Yeah.
Our champion.
I love that.
But anyway, in 42nd Street, your question was he go, Joel, I don't know what I want here. Just play for me. And he would do that he'd pick different people throughout the company to do that. And he go, nope. Nope. And you could be his favorite for 2 weeks. And then after that, he'd kind of go like this and go to another person,
Right.
pick up what they had to offer.
Right.
Which is why he hired everybody.
Yeah.
He was really smart.
Yeah. That's fascinating. That's incredible. I want to ask you, where do I want to jump from here? Oh, I guess I want to ask you a little bit about Stardust, because we spoke to Jim about it too. Jim Walton, that is. And what I find interesting about, because when we had Jim on, we talked about, he did this thing called something Frank, and it was a Frank Lesser review, and it seems like Stardust was a review of Mitchell Parish.
Yeah.
And I guess what I want to ask you is these reviews, they used to exist all the time on Broadway, and they really don't anymore. And it was a concept that was a little bit foreign to me, honestly, because we did reviews when I was in grade school and whatnot, but it wasn't at the same capacity. Can you talk a little bit about what it meant? Because those felt like variety shows in their own right?
Oh yeah. Yeah. Jim did this review downtown on Bleecker Street. It was called what was it called?
Can't remember what it was called now.
It
It's
had
the one
a
with the
duck.
duck.
Dancing duck feet or something like that.
Yeah.
Funniest thing I'd ever seen. It was so
Really?
funny. And Jimmy was great. He played piano, and they did all these, crazy bits. It was like a Saturday Night Live show. It was so good.
That's funny.
But he was, he's so brilliant because he plays piano, he writes music and everything. He's a genius, I think. So he was always asked to do these reviews, and I think after a while he said, "No, I don't want to do another review."
Sure.
But he wound up doing the Mitchell Parish thing, and
Did you audition for that too?
I came in later. They had done it, I think, downtown at this club, and they were transferring it to Broadway. And when they transferred, I came in as an understudy.
Yeah.
I understudied Jim and Jason Grah. And interestingly enough, I was at every rehearsal and all that stuff. But then when we were in the theater and we were previewing, I would watch up in the balcony. And there was a bartender that was bartending up in the balcony there on the second floor at the Biltmore Theater, which is now the part of the Manhattan Theater Club kind of thing. Anyway, he and I would sit there and just watch the show, watch the rehearsal and stuff like that. And that guy turned out to be, oh boy. Okay. Who wrote the show about the White House, the West Wing? Who's the guy who wrote that?
Aaron Sorkin.
Aaron Sorkin.
Wow.
Aaron Sorkin was, a young playwright right out of Yale, and he was a bartender at the Broadway theaters. He bartended at the Biltmore.
That's crazy.
Yeah, he bartended at the Palace.
Wow.
Anyway, he and I would sit there and just joke about all the the stupid things in the show. And
wow, that's so funny.
Yeah,
wow.
Yeah, Aaron Sorkin. But yeah, Jim, there were some really fun things in that show and some really dumb things.
Sure.
Really
sure.
Yeah.
The next thing I wanted to ask you a little bit about was "And the World Goes Round," because you replaced Jim in that show, and I mean, God, we spoke to him about this too. Is like that music was just, particularly the songs you got to sing. "Marry Me" is one of the, I think, the best male ballads out there, you know, and then also the Sometimes a Day Goes By with the, oh gosh.
Yeah.
It talked to me about just working with Stro on that production and also singing those beautiful songs.
Well, it was, it was a gift, I had just done a tab version of Funny Girl at the Claridge Hotel in Atlantic City, 2 shows a night, no day off, all week.
Wow.
And, I played Eddie Ryan. I had the great number who taught him everything she knows.
Yeah.
But otherwise I'd come out and they cut the script so much. I'd come out, I go, but Fanny, and then I'd leave. I go, Fanny, don't. I'd go off stage. Things like that. But I thought, if this is what my career is going to be, I'm ready to just hang it all up. I come back into New York, and my agent says, "Yeah, you want to audition for this review, this off Broadway? They're replacing somebody." And I said, "What is it?" And he said, "It's a Kander and Ebb thing. You want to go in for it?" Yeah, okay. And so I saw it. I went, holy shit, this is great.
Yeah.
This is great. And who am I? I'm up for Jimmy's part? Holy crap. So I went in and, of course, all of it was right up my alley. All the songs were in my key. And then the dancing was just easy for me anyway, as a tapper. And I did all my stuff, and I had gotten it, and it was just just a total gift. Now, what did you ask me?
No, I was just talking about the songs "Marry Me" and "Sometimes a Day Goes By."
Well, yeah. Sometimes a Day Goes By. Again, it wasn't a high thing, and I'm more of a baritone. Jimmy's more of a higher voice. And so that fit perfectly in my range.
Yeah.
And also the setup. And the great thing about that show is there's no intro. There's no people saying, and now we're going to do that wonderful Kander and Ebb number. No, there was none of that. We just, it was seamless. We went from one number to the next, and everything fit perfectly.
Right.
Right. And so to do that with Bob Cuccioli was the other guy.
Yeah.
And we, that was a great song. And the Marry Me number is in the middle of a big dance number. Did you know that?
No, I didn't know.
Yeah, it was, it set up this amazing thing with me and Karen Ziemba. I would sing it with her first, and then I'd take her up off this bench, and then we start dancing, and it goes from ballroom to tap, and to this big ballet thing where I throw her up and I grab her like that, and her legs are in the air, and she slides down, and I turn her around and I pick her up again.
Wow.
It was just an epic dance routine number. That we got to do, Karen and I, every night.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's awesome. You would go on to work with Stro again on Showboat, and I want you to know, so I'm like, oh, wow, where do I begin? Because I went to go watch it yesterday at the library. Yeah. And first of all, it is unbelievable.
It was like being in Gone with the Wind every night. I mean, it was an epic. The set, just the sets, it was like the stage was being on the dock. It was like planks of wood.
It
was amazing.
I cannot fathom that kind of production. But also the rewrites, like the rewritten book, was so sharp and so funny and so strong. I want to first ask you about that incredible boat set and how in the opening number, for those of you who don't know it, go look it up because a lot of it is on YouTube. But it's a 2-story, what feels like cruise ship that comes from stage left and just goes through stage right, and you guys are all in it through the windows.
And it keeps coming.
And it keeps coming and keeps coming. First of all, how did that even exist on the set there?
Well, the way they did it was amazing. It split. It actually bent. They folded it.
Oh, wow.
So off stage, the front was there,
right?
But then there was. Then they. I'm messing up with my.
No, you're good.
They turned it so it was like this off stage. It was like
unfold.
like that, And so then as this went on, this filled in, and then it came out like that.
Wow.
Yeah. And so that's how they did it.
Super effective.
Yeah. Yeah, it was amazing.
And you guys were at the Gershwin Theater, right?
Yeah.
It's huge. That's where Wicked is now. You could feel the scope of the space.
Huge.
And the scope of the show.
Yeah.
Did you know it well before doing
Showboat?
Yeah.
I didn't really, actually when I was asked to audition for it, I went, that old dusty thing, because, it had been done so many times, and I didn't really know the show, so I thought it was just a very old time kind of musical revival.
And at that rate, it was already almost 70 years old, the show.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I didn't realize how dynamic a script it was, and how controversial and how real it was, and the cast, the African American cast and the white cast and everything that we were all in this together. It was just an experience, a once in a lifetime experience. To do that show.
Well, I also were you always going out for the part that you were playing Frank, right?
Yeah.
You were always going in for Frank. And how did you get involved with it originally?
Well, I think Susan came to me and said, I'm doing Showboat. I said, well, I'd like to audition. I said, okay.
Yeah.
So, Hal Prince didn't know who I was. Every principal he had worked with before, except me.
Oh, wow.
Okay. And so... And now Hal, great guy, but very, very, very loud and very blustery, and
tough.
Everybody was all afraid of him, and and if you weren't on his good side, he'd lay into you, And I have a lot of stories about the.
Oh, I will have every single one.
Okay.
I will take every single one.
Well, okay, all right, here we go.
Put your seatbelt on.
So yeah, like I say, I had never worked with him before, and Elaine. I'll just start with Elaine. I was like thrilled to be working with her, and I don't think I said this happened in rehearsal, but once we got to Toronto, I went into her dressing room and said, I haven't told you this, Elaine, but the very first Broadway show I had ever seen was the National Touring Company of Company. Okay, and all the originals from Company came to San Francisco, except for the lead. It was George Chakiris actually played Bobby in that company, and maybe one other part. But you had Donna McKechnie in there, you had Elaine in there, and all these other amazing actors, Broadway people from the golden age of musicals, right there on the stage. I went, okay, I want to do musicals. I want to do shows.
Right.
When I saw that. Okay, so I told that to her, and I told her also her performance totally blew me away. That's all I had to do was just compliment her on something. I was her best friend.
Wow.
Yeah. But later on, I'll tell you what happens to all her best friends after they get to know her.
Oh boy. Oh my gosh.
Yeah. Okay. So.
She was amazing in Showboat. She was in that production. She was just.
She's never bad. She was always amazing.
Yeah.
We had staged this one scene where Frank, my character,
right,
is in a bar, and Ravenel is also in the bar, and he's gambling, and they're going to kick Julie and Steve off because they're found out that it's miscegenation.
Interracial couple.
Yeah, right. And Frank is kind of like the Scarecrow in Wizard of Oz.
Yeah.
He doesn't know how smart he is, but he always comes up with the right answers.
Right.
And that's the same kind of character that Frank is.
And you're diffusing the situation a lot.
Yeah, exactly. I always have the thing, I always do the right thing to get. So I'm in there and I'm getting drunk because Pete just tells me that we're gonna get rid of Julie and that kind of stuff, and I'm scared of him, and so then I go to the bar and I start downing a lot of booze, and Hal says to me, "I want you to get real drunk. I want you to just keep drinking, keep drinking. And then meanwhile, Ravenel's, till good luck comes my way, I'll stray along, da 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 dee da. It's a gambling, guys and all that kind of stuff. And then, I'm thinking, what are we gonna do? And then he comes to the bar, and I start talking to him. I say, hey, look, we need somebody. And I think he loses at gambling, and then we have to take him. So I say, hey, we need somebody to play Steve's part because they're kicking him off. And so I'm the guy who brings Ravenel to the boat. Okay? All right, and we stage that. And he said, make sure you're just totally drunk, Okay, fine. So the next day, we do the scene, and it's the big miscegenation scene. The beginning is where I'm bringing on Ravenel. So I'm supposed to enter. Robert Morse is playing Captain Andy. Okay, I enter. I don't have any lines. I just come on, and I'm a little bit. I'm just sort of. It's blocking, so I wasn't like acting big. So I was just kind of like slightly staggering a little bit, kind of playing that because that's how he wanted him to be.
Right.
Bobby takes one look at me, and it's his line. He says he's supposed to say, "Not now, Frank. Steve and Julie are leaving," like that. All right. And I'm standing there. I'm waiting for him to say the line. Bobby is looking at me. He's going, and he doesn't say anything. Hal then goes, what's going on? Forgive me if it's too loud. He said,
No.
What the hell's going on? And he looks at me. What are you doing? What are you doing? What are you doing? Say your line. Say your line. I said, and I was a little bit nervous. I wanted to say, it's not my line. It's his line. I didn't even get a chance to say that. Ruthie says, well, Bobby's supposed to say something here. And Hal looks, all right, go out and come back in again, like that, right? So I go, okay. Now everybody in the cast is in the room, watching this whole thing. Right. So I go out, and we get to that point in the scene. I come back in, and I'm standing there, and Bobby still doesn't say the line. And then Hal goes, "What are you doing? What's he doing? What are you doing? What are you doing?" Like that. And Ruthie says, "I think," and then Bobby turns to Hal. I just see the back of Bobby's head, right? And Bobby's going like this.
Huh.
And then he steps away, and Hal says, "All right, cut the drunk bit." And I wasn't even doing the drunk bit, but I was just sort of slightly staggering because, that's what he told me to do. He says, "Cut the drunk bit." I went, but yesterday he said, "Oh, well, it's a red herring. It's a red herring. Just go out and come back in again." Like this, like that, Because he'd never worked with me. I'm the one he's going to pick on, right?
Sure.
Okay. So I come back, I go out. And now, let me just say, I'd already been in the business for 25 years.
Right.
I'm not going to get intimidated. I'm not going to get I'm not going to start crying or anything like that. I've been around. I go out, I come back in again. I'm standing there, and he still does not stay the line. And Hal says, What? All right, everybody take a break. Just take a break. And we stopped at that point. We didn't even go on with the scene. Okay, so the next day, and I go, I just laughed to myself. I said, what the fuck? I'm just doing my job here.
Right.
So the next day, I'm walking into the rehearsal hall. Zook! Bobby Morse comes right up to my face. Are you okay? You all right? Look. You cried last night, did you? You cried last night. Yeah. And he said, "No, it's all good." No. And I'm trying to get around him. And I was like, get the fuck out of my face, right?
Yeah.
And I said, he says, you cried last night. You cried last night. I've been there. Right? I go, okay. He said, "Can I make a sug? A sug. Can I make a sug? Not a note. A sug. Can I make a sug?" And I was thinking, what's a sug? And he went, "Gestion." Can I make a suggestion? Not a note, a suggestion. And at that point I go, okay, here it comes, because, when actors want to give other actors a note, you got to take it with a grain of salt. You got to say, okay, is this old school? And I'm going to defer to the star, right?
Right.
So you go, okay, yeah, sure, Bobby, give me a suggestion like that. And he says, when you come into the room, when you come onto the boat, say, Captain Andy, there's something I got to tell you, like that.
What?
Yeah. And I went, but that's not in the script. He said, let's talk to Ruthie. And then he starts to go over to Ruthie, his Hal's assistant, Hal's associate.
Yeah.
And I just watch him go over there and I go, what? Am I in an insane asylum now? Am I going crazy? But the thing that was funny is you cried last night, didn't you?
That's
cried last night.
crazy.
What?
Oh my
I
gosh.
said, no, I didn't cry. He goes to Ruthie and they put it in the script. They put that in the script. Okay. All right. Long story short, here's what happened. Bobby, I was always a big fan of his. He's a terrific performer.
Right.
And I loved him in the movies and all that kind of stuff. And, but I had heard stories over the years. But anyway.
Sure.
In Act 2, he gets drunk in the nightclub scene.
Mm-hmm.
Remember the New Year's Eve?
Yeah, of course.
It's a whole drunk scene for him. And he was afraid and worried that I was going to do a drunk bit in the Act 1 that was going to upstage his Act 2 thing. As if anybody would even, right?
Wait, you're stealing the bit from Frank from Act 1.
Yeah. So when they put it in the script, I didn't realize that, at the time, but
my gosh.
I figured it out later. Because, he would also do things like, in the opening, I might have told this backstage.
Yeah.
In the opening number, he introduced all the players on the showboat. And, Captain Andy. And he goes, and there's Frank Schultz. And now his Captain Andy was very similar to his Truman Capote. Very drawn out like this, almost like W.C. Fields, There's young Frank, and he plays the villain in our play. Pause. But he's really a nice guy. Pause. And he's stuck on Ellie. Okay, so I run, he's introducing all the. I come out and he does that, and I'm standing there with egg on my face. What am I supposed to do here? So I thought, if he's going to take all that time, fine. I'll fill it with some shtick. I'll start doing stuff. So his Frank Schultz, he's a villain, and I'd act out the villain. I do, all sorts of stuff. But he's really a nice guy. And then I take my hat off and I go, hi, like that. I mean, I would totally mime whatever he says about me. And then he's stuck and I go, whatever. I don't know. I don't remember what he did, but I filled it. And so that stayed in the show for quite a long time until I started getting laughs. I started getting a hand the next night. And there's Frank Schultz. He's a villain in our play, but he's a really nice guy. He's stuck on Julie. As soon as I started getting a laugh, then he just sped it up. And, I went, I pitched a fit backstage. And there was a we'd already been running for a while. And there was the associate director that was watching the show, and I called her over and said, "Hey, what is it? How are we going to do this show? We gonna change it every night? If I get a laugh or something, it's going to be changed." And I hold it, and then Bobby comes out of his dressing room. What? What's your complaint? What's your complaint? You have a complaint about me? What's your complaint? And he says, if you have a complaint, get in line. Because there's a lot of people who complained about me in my career. Go ahead, make a complaint. It's not you, Bobby. I was just doing something, and now I have to figure something out. So are you going to do it that fast every night? And he said, I don't know, like that. He went back to the old way.
Oh my God!
He went back to the old because I've learned in my career, like if you let people run all over you, then they'll continue.
They will, yeah.
They'll continue to do that. Look, I don't want to say because I loved Bobby. I loved him.
Yeah.
I thought he was a wonderful performer. And he's not with us anymore, and I'm not trying to say anything bad about him.
No.
He sort of was known for being, remember how I told you how I wanted to stand out?
Mm-hmm.
Same with Bobby. Bobby always wanted to stand out. And you got to love him for that.
And people are layered. I mean, there's a lot that people don't see, and there's also, he could still be a wonderful performer and also have, bits about him that...
Absolutely. And he did some things in Showboat that every night I would laugh at. He cracked me up.
Yeah.
It's
funny, he wasn't in the recording that I watched yesterday.
No, because he got fired.
John.
He got fired.
Really?
In
Toronto?
Replaced in Toronto, halfway through. Well, it got to a point, he and Elaine got to be like this.
Really?
Yeah.
Huh.
And Elaine and Hal were good friends. And so I think that's kind of, they had to promise him that he could come back into the production. And I think he came back into the Toronto production, which ran another year in Toronto.
Oh, gotcha.
While we went to Broadway.
Gotcha. With the different cast and everything.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. But John McMartin came in.
Yeah, who's wonderful.
The sweetest guy in the world. I loved him so
much. And gosh, what a talent. I mean, and he had such chemistry with Elaine.
Perfect. Elaine loved everybody. I mean, he was just an actor's actor and a giving performer and super nice to me. I loved him.
He was the original in Follies. He's the Road You Didn't Take. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And also was in the movie Sweet Charity. He played the guy in Sweet Charity.
Yeah. He was brilliant. I want to ask you about from Toronto moving, because Toronto was like your guys' out of town tryout, and then you guys transferred for a year.
Yeah.
And then you transferred to Broadway. Did much change from that Toronto production to the Broadway production? No, right?
Well, they tried to make some changes. A few things. There were some set changes.
Oh, okay.
I did this entrance. When I enter in the scene with getting Magnolia the job.
Yeah.
Where I dance her
in
into
Act 2.
Yeah. I had this wonderful entrance where I would bounce down the stairs. And I do like a cramp roll as I was going to rump, 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 and like that. And I was tilted this way. Rump, rump, rump. I'd always get a hand. Once I got to the bottom, and I walked, and I was like halfway like this, and then I walked like that. It was just an eccentric move.
Yeah.
And it was great. Well, they put carpet on the stairs,
so it totally
coming
masked
down,
the sound.
And I didn't get to have that rump, rump, rump thing.
Right.
But it still worked.
It
still
worked.
Yeah. But I was going, you put carpet there. It was such a good bit.
Yeah. There was a couple moments that you really had to like make your own. And one of them in particular that I want to call out and really ask you how much of it was yours and how much of it was Stroh's. And that's Goodbye, My Lady Love. That whole number is just like... I was watching it and knowing you, I was like, it just felt like it was screaming you. It felt as if you were just pulling it out, How much of that number was you and how much of it was Stroh?
Well, pretty much the whole thing was Stroh, except for the section where the guy grabs Ellie and in the nightclub and is holding her, and I'm left all by myself. I don't even see what's going on. I do a whole set of hat tricks. Did you notice that?
Of course.
I go over and I throw my hat off. It rolls down my hand. I grab it. I spin it. I throw it in back. I catch it like that. Put it on my head, and then I kick it to my foot.
Yeah.
And then I throw it up and I catch it on my head.
And you got a huge applause
every night. I did that, and Peter Slutzker, who's now Peter Marks actually, and Eddie Corbich absolutely hated me because they had to, when they replaced me, they had to do it.
Oh, really?
Yeah, they had to learn how to do it, and they had to try it. And they said, well, I can't do that. That's Blum. That's Joel Blum. And Stroman said, you have to do that. She made them learn it. And they for, like now, I don't know how many years this is, like 30 years, maybe.
That's funny.
They all come to me and say, I hate you. I hate you so much.
Eddie's amazing.
Yeah.
I just saw him in that in About Time, the Maltby-and-Shire review that he did.
Oh yeah,
he was
yeah.
great.
No,
He was
great. He's really great.
And the other, big part about Showboat was that was your first Tony nomination.
Yes.
What do you remember about that?
Oh, well, I couldn't believe it. I couldn't believe that I was nominated, honestly. They come out on, I think, on a Monday morning or something.
Something like that, yeah.
Yeah, at 8 a.m., And I slept through it. Somebody called me up and told me.
Did you anticipate it at all?
Not really. No, I didn't. I mean, I knew, yeah, because, there was a lot of Broadway shows that year.
Yeah.
And I couldn't believe that I was nominated. I think I started crying.
Yeah. Special moment. I mean, that production, I think, got something like 10 Tony nominations, something like that. Right. And it was like you and is Michelle, how you say his name? Michelle Bell? Michael Bell?
Michelle Bell.
Yeah, who was brilliant. Yeah. He was nominated, and the Stro was nominated and won, and Hal, and the production, and yeah, Queenie was nominated.
And she won.
Yeah, right. And she won too.
She was great.
Yeah. So just an epic production. I encourage everyone to go watch it because it's fascinating. And my naive brain was thinking to myself, I mean, I watched a lot of it when we had Stro on, but I think my naive brain was like, this is an older show. It's even older than Oklahoma. It's going to be 100 years old next year. So, it's 1927. So, I was like, I don't know how this will hold up. I don't know but it is.
Yeah. It's
sharp.
Very, very, I mean, it doesn't lose anything. And the thing, what was I going to say? It was the first musical. It was Hal. In fact, the other day, I have a student that's living in my living room right now, and he's trying to learn everything about. He's from Peru. He's trying to learn everything about show business and stuff.
Yeah.
There was a wonderful documentary that they made of. I don't know if you ever saw it.
No.
Oh, in Toronto, there's a documentary on the production.
What?
A Canadian document. You should check it out. And I hadn't seen it. In fact, when it came out, I don't even think I watched it, but I'm kind of featured in it a lot. Actually.
Wow. Did you know that they were making it when you guys were doing it?
Yeah. But I mean, we were still, the focus was doing the show rather than,
right, of course.
that kind of stuff. So, but I watched it like 2 days ago and I went, oh my God. Look at this. It's a great one. You should check it out.
Yeah, absolutely. I did not know that. I'm going to look that up. That's
Garth
crazy.
Rabinski, the producer, and Hal, they were interviewed throughout the whole thing. Susan was interviewed.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Great.
The other thing, the last thing I wanted to discuss about Showboat was the fact that you guys transferred to the West End.
Yes.
Which is amazing.
Oh my God. That was again another once in a lifetime experience.
Yeah.
I'd be on stage on the West End, and how, especially in parts that you've been doing a long time, your mind expands. You can think of, you could be doing your taxes in your head and still be able to key into other people.
Right.
And at that point, I'd be doing this. There's this one serious scene. It's the only scene in the play that there's no underscoring, and it's a scene where Magnolia finds out that Ravenel has left her. And Frank and Ellie are visiting her and don't realize that she's living in a kind of a hovel.
Right.
And so
this is after this is when she gets the letter that he's leaving.
Letter.
Yeah.
And so it's not a big scene, but it's a very sensitive short scene. And, where I have lines of, won't it cost you something to keep the kid at the convent? And, parenthetically, that's a line that I said, God, I hope I don't sound too much like James Cagney on that line, because if you say it really fast, won't it cost you something to keep the kid at the convent? If you all of a sudden you sound like James Cagney.
Yeah.
Won't it cost you something to keep the kid at the convent? Like that. So I had to really kind of like be very, but in that scene in particular, it was so quiet. You could hear a pin drop. And I go, oh my God. Part of my brain said, I'm standing on a stage in London speaking lines to other actors in front of British people,
Right.
you know, in a big theater. I mean, is this really happening? It was such an amazing experience of, you know, I was pinching myself. I go, this is really happening. You know, I don't want to say the word made it, but I felt like I've gotten this far in my career, you know?
Yeah.
I went, gosh, you know, there was that feeling of being overwhelmed by the actual moment there. So,
yeah, that's really special. And in the great American musical, you know what I mean?
Yeah, and you know, getting a chance to really just do my stuff, you know, was just what a major gift.
Yeah,
it was.
for sure. Yeah. If you have any other Hal Prince story that comes to mind, we'll gladly.
Really?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
All right. Well, here's another one. And this is actually another great thing that happened.
Yeah.
Maybe the next day after what just happened, we're doing this scene, and by the way, there's a 3-page scene in the original where two backwoodsmen come in and they confront Frank and Ellie. Okay. And it's not the scene that we're doing, but it's right before this. Or maybe it is a scene. I don't remember. Anyway, in that scene, the 3-page scene originally written, a lot of comedy. They're terrorizing Frank, and Frank's, you know, like, you know,
Jittery,
very afraid and all that kind of stuff. And he said, well, that scene, even before we got the first rehearsal, was cut.
Okay.
So there was only one thing that had to be in there because it was plot. Okay. And that was, is this where they're doing that play acting? You know, they come in and Frank is there and they go, well, where do you get your tickets? And then the guy shoots a gun off.
Yes.
Shoots a gun off. And then I faint.
Uh-huh.
Right? Well, I said, without that 3-page scene, that's not going to be funny. There's no setup for it. It's just a guy shoots a gun off, you faint, and then you have to pick up all the egg that is on your face and, you know, and get off. I said, there's no payoff at all. And I'm going, fuck, you know, why can't there be that comedy in there? Well, Hal would say, well, we're not going to do that scene because, you know, it's corny, it's old, it's corny, and there aren't any comedians that can do that kind of comedy anymore. And I go, well, thanks, Frank. Thank you, Hal. You know, why not, you know, trust who you freaking hire for the part? Anyway, so I was upsetting. Upsetting.
You didn't say that though.
No, of course not. Oh my God.
Okay.
My God, I would have been drawn and quartered. That's what I was thinking. But there was one comic line in there, and then there was another one that involves Elaine, which I will tell you about also. But there was one comic line in there, and we were doing this thing, and before we even got to the line, Hal said, all right, now I left this line in there, and I know it's not going to be funny. But I left the line in there for you. Do that line. I went, well, that's great. Thank you. What do you do with that as an actor? The director said, I know it's not going to be funny.
Yeah.
You know. So anyway, well, after we staged that scene, you know, where I faint and all that kind of stuff, and I go, oh, this is just going to be hell. He calls me, Frank, come over here. He never used my real name, by the way. He said, Frank, come over here. I want to talk to you about something. In the first act, I want you to wear a hairpiece, but it's going to be a bad hairpiece. It's going to look bad. And then in the second act, you mature as a performer and you decide not to wear the hairpiece. And all through the second act, you don't wear a hairpiece. In the first act, you wear it, but the second act, you're going to be bald. Okay? And so I said, okay, it's a bad hairpiece. How's the audience going to know that it's Frank Schultz wearing a bad hairpiece and not the actor in the play wearing a bad hairpiece? Right. There's no line that's going to set that up in any way. And he looked at me like this. Well, it's a directorial choice. I mean, I thought I made a good point, right?
Yeah.
So, and I went, I just skulked off. I went, okay, like that. Okay. So that was like the day after that other crap happened, you know?
Yeah.
Okay. So opening night in Toronto,
Yeah.
right? I'm backstage. There's like a unit, and then I'm coming out of the unit. I have a couple of lines like, everybody gets their name on the program except for me. Well, how come? How come I never get? And that's when the backwoodsmen come in or something like that. And I'm thinking, oh God, this is going to be horrible. It's going to be horrible. I'm going to faint, and it's going to be nothing, you know, just whoosh, like that. And they made a hairpiece for me, and it looked good.
It did look great.
It looked good, and actually they made one version. Hal says it looks too good. Fix it, you know. And they lacquered it down. They lacquered it down so that it was, you know, really almost looked like a plastic wig, but it still looked good.
Yeah,
right. And it was parted in the middle.
Mm-hmm.
And I went right before I went on. I mean, literally right before I was backstage, ready to open the door to go out. And I went, I had got this idea. It was glued here in the front, and there was a clip in the back. Okay. I unclipped the back, and backstage, I tried something. I went like this, and the whole thing went forward like this. Okay. And it was like in a cup. It would still look the same. It looked like it was the forming of my head, but it was right here in front. And I went like that and went, great. And I went like this, and it went back up on my head. Right. I said, idea. I got this idea. So, and I made sure it wouldn't clip on my, so I clipped it, but without touching any of my hair. So it was like smooth. I went out, did the couple of lines. Well, how come they don't put my name on the program? I've been working here for the whole time, you know, and Ellie says, oh, don't worry about it. And then the two backwoodsmen came in, and they go, so this weird dude play acted? And he said, yeah. And the guy shoots the gun off. I faint, and I make sure when I fall and I hit the ground, I went like that, and the hairpiece went forward.
Mm-hmm.
Now, this was our first performance in front of an audience.
Oh, boy.
This is me taking a huge chance,
Yeah,
right?
Yeah.
Forward. And I get up. Can I stand up? Can you see me? So I get up.
Zoom out if you need to, Angel.
I get up, and you know what? I stand up. The hairpiece is like this, and I'm walking around like this because I can't see because my hair's in front of my face, like that. And then I stop. Now, at that point, the audience is in hysterics.
Yeah.
Right? They're laughing.
Yeah.
And then I just go like this, like that, and I get a hand, like an ovation.
Oh, my
right?
gosh.
Okay. Intermission happens. I'm in my dressing room, and I shared it with Michelle Bell, but he wasn't in the room. There's a knock on the door. I'm sitting there by myself. I'm going, okay.
Here it is.
Knock on the door. He opens the door. It's Hal Prince. He steps into the room. Pauses for a second. I go, I'm fired. Right? He pauses. He goes like that. You made that moment work for me. You made that bit work for me. Good job. And he left. I went, you know, when you are in a situation where you think you're going to get fired or where something's not going good for you, and then you turn it into a victory, that was one of those moments in my life.
By taking a risk.
I took a major
The
chance.
utmost risk.
Yeah, major chance. And not only did I get a laugh, but I got an ovation.
Yeah.
And it stayed in the show. Now, you probably saw this when you saw the video. Meanwhile, there was a lot of other people in the background when that happened. Nobody knew that was coming. So nobody did anything. Everybody was just going like that when it happened.
I thought it was a mistake almost.
Yeah. It had since grown. Everybody in the background now, when I did the flip back on the thing, everybody, there were people jumping in their hands, jumping and just in back of me. I didn't even know. Jumping on and slipping and falling and doing all sorts of crap in back of me because they wanted to be part of that bit too, you know?
Right.
So it was like an earthquake. When I did that, an earthquake happened and everybody was doing like, whatever, mugging for the day as the day is long. And when I saw the video for the first time, I went, that's what's going on in back of me? Oh my God.
That's funny.
Yeah.
That's funny.
But it still was a a guarantee of a
And
big
I
laugh.
remember that bit. So when you started telling this story just now, I was about to say, and we should mention, and then I was like, oh, I abstained, and then I'm happy I did because you told the story. But I know the exact bit. The second you mentioned that it was clipped in the back, I just didn't know. At first, I thought it was an accident for a moment, for like one moment. Then I was like, when I first watched it, and I was like, oh, you know.
Yeah.
But great. It's a great bit.
Thank you.
Well, I also thought to myself, I was like, wow, Joel had a lot of hair back then, you know?
No, I mean it was a great hairpiece, you know.
Yeah,
It looked
yeah.
terrific.
Yeah.
But I did, and The World Goes Around. I had a couple of Paul Huntley hairpieces from other shows, and I wanted to not be a bald guy, you know.
Sure.
And at that time, I was like, I still had hair here, but you know, I wanted to maybe come up. So I asked if they would pay for a hairpiece for me for that show, and they had Paul Huntley make me a hairpiece.
Oh, that's cool.
And I wore it for a little while, but I didn't feel as funny. I didn't feel, you know, like me.
Yeah.
with the hair. So I wore it for about maybe a month and a half, and I said, I'm not gonna. I said to Scott Ellis, I said, I'm not gonna wear this anymore. He said, I don't know why you even wore it in the first place. You know,
Yeah.
what do you need it? You know.
Yeah.
And so I stopped wearing it.
Yeah. What was the moment you were going to mention regarding Elaine?
Oh, okay. Well, then, you know, Elaine was this. Look, I love Elaine. I love you. I love you. Elaine had this certain affliction, I think, as a person who is tough. And
we've heard many an Elaine Stritch story, so
Okay, all right.
she's definitely tough.
She's tough. And the thing is, I think Elaine feels the only way she can win in life is to have everybody against her. And then she goes, oh, yeah? Well, I'll show you. And that's a good impression of her.
It is a great impression, actually.
I'll show you. You don't like me? Well, yeah. Can I swear?
Yeah.
Fuck you, all of you. You know, I'll show you. And she does. She has to feel like the world is against her before she...
To overcome it.
This is my analysis of her.
Sure.
Okay. Well, she, you know, took the whole company out in shifts to dinner. She you know, we would go to a really nice restaurant and we'd sit there, like there would be like maybe 10 or 14 people. And then the next night she'd take another 10 or 14 people. I mean, there was like, I don't know, 51 or, you know, 60 people in the show, and take them out. And she made friends with everybody and then unmade them over the whole time, you know, but
Jeez.
With me, we were close. We were good friends. She'd tell me stories and funny stuff, just wonderful, wonderful show business stories and things. And then there was this one scene in rehearsal. It started in rehearsal. There's this one scene where they say, well, how about Frank can do the part of Steve? Ellie says, what about Frank? He could do it.
Right.
And she says, with that face and those flat feet, you know, like that. Funny line, right? With that face and those flat feet, I wouldn't give him a chance, and like something like that. Well, we got to that line, and I'd already had all these jokes cut out of the show, you know, before I even got a chance to do them. You know, that would have been a fun line to react to, you know, or something. But she goes, with that face and those flat feet, nah, you wouldn't have a chance. She says, before she even said the line, she said, now, do I have to say that line? That's a kid. Do I have to look at him? He doesn't have an ugly face. Do I have to say that line? And Hal says, cut the line, like that. Boom. I went, great. Another thing I could have, you know, at least felt like I was a part of the frickin' play, you know.
Yeah.
So anyway, but the progression of lines to that line, I had the punchline of the scene, and I still would always get a laugh on it. You know, there was one, I'd always get a laugh. Well, we had been doing the show we did it a year in Toronto, and we'd already done it almost a year in New York. I had a thing that I had to go to, and I took a personal day to go to it in California. I had to be there, and I was So I missed Thursday and Friday night.
Mhm.
Okay. I get back for the Saturday show. I do the Saturday matinee. We get to that line, and she starts having a coughing fit. Okay. She has a coughing fit before she says her line, which is the setup for my line, right? She has a coughing. And because of that, she gets a huge laugh because she doesn't have to do it. She knows how to get laughs, right?
Right.
She gets a huge laugh. And then my line got nothing, right? And I went, interesting. I go off stage, and there's a unit that we would go up, and she'd be up on the top. She'd be off stage too. She'd be in the top. I'd be in the bottom, in the dark. We're waiting for our next entrance. And I go off, and I just am like sitting there thinking, and she's looking at me. I see her looking at me. I can feel her looking at me, and I just kind of like glance up at her. We do the Saturday night show. Get to that place, it happens again. She's coughing and gets a huge laugh. I get nothing. I go off stage and I look up at her, and she says, "What? What? I got something caught in my throat." Like that. I got something caught in my throat like that. And I go, "For 2 shows in a row at the same plot."
The same point. She
The
started
same
coughing.
spot in the show. The next show, she didn't do it.
Yeah,
Because she knew,
You'd caught on to her.
yeah. But it was that kind of stuff,
That's funny.
Yeah.
That is funny. Let's chat about Steel Pier.
Okay.
What a show. I told you when we were in rehearsal, I'd mentioned that I had been doing a bunch of research on it because Stro was here, and I'd never heard of the show before. I mean, or maybe I had heard of it, but not very well. But it's such a wild concept and dark, but it's very niche Kander and Ebb, but also something that it's very them. It's very Kander and Ebb in the way that it is. There's some deep subtext underneath all of it. Yeah. Starting with the dance marathon. Right. You know what I mean? And everything that's beneath the dance marathon. I want you to talk about your part buddy in Steel Pier and how it came to you.
Well, I was in the middle of Showboat. Okay, do I tell this story?
Listen, anything you want to cut out, we can always cut out.
Okay. Well, I was doing Showboat, and I was at the Gershwin, and there was this little rehearsal area upstairs. I was in the highest part, but then there was another level where we had a tap floor or something.
Okay. I
was stretching before the show, and Susan was in the company management office was there too, and she was talking to them, and she walks through and said, "Oh, Joel, I'm going to be doing this new show called Steel Pier. It's a marathon thing. We're going to do a reading of it, and then eventually a workshop. Would you be interested in that?" Okay. Now, this is a story about me being a little selfish and being a little inappropriate and not being very showbiz savvy.
Sure.
Okay? In this moment. And, Susan, I owe everything. I owe everything to Susan. For hiring me And the World Goes Round, for getting me into Showboat. Everything. I would be nowhere without her. Okay. She says, "I'm doing this show on Steel Pier, and I think you'd be right for this part. Would you be interested in doing the reading?" Now, I should have said, "Oh, God, yes. Yes, of course." I said, "Is there a song? Do I get a song in the show?" Like that. Now, and I saw her kind of go, stop and freeze, I said, because, I'm a singer too. And I hope I'm not just going to be a dancer in the show. And she said, I don't know. There might be songs that you, oh, oh, so, big lesson I had to learn from that, and I think this is almost sort of like a family trait on my mother's side of the family. We tend to put our foot in our mouth a lot on my mom's side of the family, but but anyway, that was a very selfish, stupid, unshow business, smart, savvy moment. Okay. Very luckily, the offer was still in there in the thing. Well, we did the reading, and then we got into the staged reading, and then we were going to do a workshop. This was right during the O.J. Simpson period, by the way.
Yep.
Once we finally got into the room for the staged reading, everybody knew about that. My bringing up, is there a song?
Really?
Is there going to be a song? Yeah.
Why? How?
I don't know. Susan probably told. It was Scott and the writer.
Who wrote the book?
Yeah.
Can you look it up? I'm not sure.
Jay.
I might have written it. No, I didn't even write it down.
Oh, Tommy Thompson.
Okay.
Yeah. So it was Scott and Tommy Thompson, and I think maybe another guy was in on the joke too. Whenever I would go up to the director table, Scott Ellis, I go and he said, "Oh, we're working on that song for you, Joel."
Oh, that's fun though. That sounds like good fun though.
Yeah. We were trying to think of a concept for it, but we're working on it. I'm like this, But the thing, it was funny. It was funny.
Yeah.
They're ribbing me and all that stuff.
Right.
But they kept doing it. They kept doing it the whole rehearsal period.
Sure.
And then when we went into workshop again, they actually did try a song for me and Valerie Wright. But it really wasn't right. It wasn't right for the character. It wasn't right for the show.
Sure.
And they were smart not to keep it. It was.
Yeah.
So, but that was a sort of like a thing that I had to overcome, and I was rightfully being ripped by it for that. But what'd you ask me about?
We were just talking about how you got involved in it and whatnot.
Yeah. So that was how she asked me to do it.
Yeah.
And it was great. And then there was another thing. They wanted Buddy Becker to be a real fast talker. Like a real, I'm gonna go through this marathon. And I'm gonna be a big star. And his buddy and his sister. So he said, I want him to talk really fast. Scott would say he's really, really fast, kind of like Cagney, because Cagney talked really fast, and so I really sort of brought Cagney into it, and then at one point, and Scott would always say to us, if you have any questions about your character or about the era or anything like that, don't hesitate to ask, So we were well on into rehearsals, and it was getting a little bit tense. But I went up to Scott. I said, "So wait a minute, because my character kind of goes crazy in the second act. Mm-hmm. He loses his mind and he gets kicked out of the marathon." I said, "So look, Scott. So I'm not just I talk really fast, but I think I'm starting to lose my mind already in the pretty early in Act 1, aren't I? And because in the second act he said, Joel. He's just a guy who talks fast." I said, "Yeah, but in fact," he said, "it's just a guy who talks fast." I said, "Oh, okay. All right. Thanks, Scott." I'm realizing sounds like I hate directors. I don't hate directors.
Not at all.
Not at all. No, I mean, actually it was a good point that he was making, that, you can overthink shit,
Yeah.
The thing is, but when I do lose my mind in the marathon, we've been on our feet for weeks.
Yeah.
So, it doesn't matter if he's going
Those
crazy.
two things don't have to correlate.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But so anyway, that was a really interesting moment. I learned a lot in that.
Well, you were really a part of the. I don't think I've realized that your character was in the middle of the marathon of it all, but it's such a fascinating concept. And when we talked to Stro about it, like the idea that what I found interesting was that some of the couples had different essences. All of the couples had different essences. So they had, different things that were going on. In yours, Buddy and Bet, they were siblings, right?
Yes.
And they had been they were veterans.
Yes.
If I'm right about that, right?
Right. Yeah. Yeah. No, it was a great world to be a part of and to enter. The movie. They shoot horses, don't they?
No.
Do you know that?
No.
Well, I don't know whether they tried to get the rights to that.
Okay.
Because it's a very, very similar story.
Oh, interesting.
Very similar, and about a maniacal guy who ran it. And it was with Gig Young and Jane Fonda. Gig Young won the Academy Award. But it was about the very thing that happens in Steel Pier. But we added another element to it, which was the flyer. Did you ever see it?
I haven't watched. I haven't been able to watch the whole thing yet. It's at the library, but I haven't been able to watch the whole thing yet.
Yeah, it was a really great. It was
the flyer being the lead who comes in. Okay, yeah.
Yeah, who winds up in the whole thing. And the story was, to me, seemed originally kind of like a Twilight Zone episode.
Absolutely. Because you find out, and it gets spoiled, it's a musical from 30 years ago, but you find out that he's a ghost.
Yeah. But they were afraid of that, and they sort of walked back from it. Mm-hmm. In the beginning, yes, he was not alive from the beginning. But I hope we're not going to ruin this. But
no,
because if they ever revive it, but anyway, whatever. Nobody's going to.
Please.
So I liked the way they originally had it in the thing. In the workshop, I thought the workshop was really, really good. But they made improvements on it, and some of the improvements I think weren't improvements. It's my opinion.
Sure.
But I think that they kind of, like, people were saying, well, I don't get it. What's going on? They didn't stick with their original idea of it being nebulous as to whether he was dead or alive. You see? But then they said, let's establish right up front
that he is.
So then at the end, when she realizes that he wasn't real, there's no big surprise there. There is no Twilight Zone moment of, oh my God, he's been dead.
Yeah.
And so
the audience.
To the audience, yeah. And I think they could have stuck with it, but it was a big gamble. I realized that.
Yeah.
So,
because the show was unfortunately short-lived, and what Stro said about it was that a lot of it, some of it, when you look it up, had to do with Titanic, which was like the talk of the town that year. But then too, wasn't Rent that year as well? No. Okay. But
The Life, the Titanic, The Life, and there was one other.
The Revival of Chicago was
yes,
that year too.
That's right. Yes,
because that was in the middle of the OJ stuff, and so a lot of what Stro had said was that Kander and Ebb were getting a lot of attention, a lot of press on that, when they had wanted a lot of the press to go here because this was their new piece.
Oh yeah, and some of the same producers for The Life were the producers for our show too.
I see,
and when they had the Tony voters come in, they would have blocks of seats for Tony voters. And during the Tony voting time, you'd look up and there'd be empty seats in those blocks. Empty seats. And go, what's going on here?
Yeah, how come?
Where are the vote? And I think they deferred them to another show. I didn't get the politics of it, but
interesting. Well, you got a Tony nom that year, and I believe you guys were one of the most Tony nominated shows. You got 11 Tony nominations for that show.
Well, it's interesting, but also another thing about Titanic. I don't know if you know this. The last day of rehearsal in the rehearsal hall, I tore my calf muscle.
Oh my gosh!
Like almost completely off. It went zhunk like that.
Oh,
and it was the most painful thing that ever happened to me. And so I missed the whole tech period and 3 weeks of previews, 2 or 3 weeks of previews, getting myself back.
Wow.
Yeah, yeah. They could have fired me. They could have said, "No, we got to replace you."
Yeah.
You know? And I was very lucky to get back. Brad Bradley, may he rest in peace, really sweet guy, was my understudy, and he did a great job. And it was, it was as hard as it was watching him. He did a terrific job, but I'd be in the audience watching in my boot, But I was free to go and do what I wanted. So I went to see Titanic a week before it opened. They were still fixing the show, and it was in bad shape. They had to make major cuts. In fact, there was one thing where, the ship the set was tilting and things were falling down and stuff like that. And then there were moments where they had to reset the set and they didn't figure out how to do it yet. And they had a gold lame or a silver lame dot. The curtain was down. They had a silver, and they had what was supposed to be an aerial view of the boat. They had a little toy boat that was going over this gold lame dot, and they had just piano music playing. And as it was going like this, it got halfway, people started laughing, and then it got middle, and people just were in hysterics. And by the end, people were like, "Yay!" like that, just making fun of it. And I was with my girlfriend at the time, and we were watching it, and she said, "Oh, this is the biggest. This is going to be the biggest flop in the history of the theater." I said, "You don't know that. You don't know that. I've seen people make changes the last minute and shows become big hits."
Yeah.
I said, "No way." No, she said, "No way." But they did.
And that show really pulled it together.
They pulled it together, and they won everything. But,
and it's astounding too. If you go back and watch those videos of that set, it's unbelievable. It kind of was a huge part of that production. It feels like the thing that is still remembered from that production, that show, is the set.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it was it just needed cutting, and that's the wonderful thing, I think, in this business, that creative teams need to learn, especially writers, that they should not be ever afraid to cut the things that they like. They can't fall in love with their babies. It's like what Mike Nichols would say to his cast, when he did Spamalot on Broadway. He'd say, "You got to kill your babies. You got to kill your babies."
Yeah.
And that is don't fall in love with your little bit that you just came up with.
Yeah.
Wonderful thing. If it's not helping the show, I'm going to cut it.
Yeah.
And everyone should learn that lesson.
Yeah, it's being too precious with things.
Exactly. Yeah.
I want to ask you about the Music Man, and particularly what I want to ask you about the Music Man is, so you were Marcellus, and what I want to ask you about, and this is the Stroman production as well. This is in 2000. And I guess what I want to ask you about it specifically was the fact that, well, first of all, it's looked at as the production of the Music Man,
I
similar
agree.
to Showboat,
I agree. I agree.
and Rebecca Luker was Marion, and Craig Bierko was Harold Hill, and then was replaced by Robert Sean Leonard and Eric McCormack and from Will and Grace. And I guess what I want to ask you about it, because you mentioned this in passing before in the dressing room, and I feel like and we had Janine Lamanna on here, and she talked about what it was like doing Kiss Me Kate in a post 9/11 New York City. And that show is another show similar to the Music Man, where it's just full of joy, And I was wondering if you could speak to doing the show, especially post 9/11.
Well, yeah. I came in. I replaced
Max
Casella, yeah. But I came in right at the year point, and it was right in January. And I came in, and I had an opportunity to play the show for a year.
Yeah.
So in September, when that happened, first of all, you're right. I think it was just the greatest production. It was so beautiful. When the company sang, I wasn't even on stage, but when the company sang
76 Trombones?
No. There's something about the Iowa way. it made me cry every night. You know, they were, but we'll give you our shirt, or you know, the shirt off our back and that kind of thing. It just, you know, it gave me this feeling of, God, I love America. You know, that kind of thing. It's like, this is what America is, you know, the innocence, the neighbors, you know, your neighbors you love. It was, and it just captured that song captured it. And I would stand in the wings every night and watch it.
Yeah.
And just, of course, you know, I was just always just so grateful even to be a part of that production.
Right.
I had to beg to get another audition for it, because my first audition originally, I totally screwed it up.
Why?
Why? I don't know. I don't know. It just didn't go well. Sometimes,
Yeah.
you know, I remember I'd say to a friend, you know, how come I can't get it? How come I didn't get this? I was great in this. And he said, Joel, sometimes they just don't want you.
Gosh, isn't that a hard thing to like accept?
Yeah. You know, they're not, sometimes they just don't like it. And I got to come up with the name of the guy who told me, because he's great performer by names. But when 9/11 happened, and I had done it with Craig, I did it with Eric. I loved both Craig and Eric. Craig was wonderful. Well, I got a story, but I don't know, maybe I shouldn't tell it.
Okay.
Eric was wonderful. Loved him. And Robert Sean Leonard was a great guy. We used to ride our bikes home. I lived down in Chelsea, and he lived in the Village. So we would take our bikes and we'd ride down the West Side Highway on the bike lane every night. You know, you know, and talking while we were riding. It was just a super, super nice guy.
Yeah.
Well, when 9/11 happened, I have to tell you this story. I had a personal date beforehand. I flew to California because there was this, remember that Tammy the Shrew production that I told you about, the Western version?
Right.
We had done that at the Edinburgh Festival. Robin and I did it at the Edinburgh Festival in 1971. Robin played Tranio, I played Lucentio.
Wow.
Okay? He was my servant, but he much bigger part for Robin, and he was very funny. We did it in Scotland at this church center we shared with the Bristol Vintage Review, and got to know these young English people that were so much fun. Anyway, we were the hit of the Fringe. We were the first time a Fringe production of anything was visited by royalty. Princess Margaret came to our show.
Whoa.
We were the hit of the whole freaking festival, right?
Wow. And
we turned it into a Western saloon, this small room. And everybody came, was dying to see our show. Yeah. Because we didn't change the dialogue at all. It was all Shakespeare, but it played perfectly as a Western.
Right,
you know, right. Kate was a Calamity Jane kind of character, and Petruchio was a Clint Eastwood character. Gremio, his servant, was a Mexican bandito, you know, that kind of stuff. You know, hit me here, hit what, you know. I mean, it was so good. Anyway, so, why did I bring that up? Shoot.
We were talking about the post 9/11 of it all. I don't know if that'll.
Oh yeah, because I had flown out to California because we were having our 30th anniversary reunion.
Okay.
For that production, and Robin was supposed to be there, but it was, unfortunately for him, his mother had just passed away, so he couldn't go. But we were all there, and then I was supposed to fly back on Sunday. I said no. I haven't had a chance to see my family. I'm gonna fly back on the red eye. I think 9/11 happened on a Tuesday morning.
Yeah.
On the red eye on Monday night. So I took a flight from San Francisco, landing at LaGuardia right when it happened.
Whoa.
I think our flight was one of the last flights to actually land in New York City.
Wow.
Because as we were landing, there was a girl who's looking out the window. Hey, what's going on over there? Because we were at that LaGuardia, so you could see the city. What's going on over there? We land. Nobody paid any attention. I got my bags. I get into a cab. I'm going to the 59 to the Triborough Bridge, right? On the radio, it said, "Oh, a light plane has just crashed into the World Trade Center. We'll have an update soon." And then as we were driving, again said, 747 has just crashed into the Pentagon. And there I go, what the hell's going on? So we get to the entrance of the Triborough Bridge. I said, nobody comes into New York City. They stopped us. I said, go to the 59th Street Bridge. We drove the 59th Street Bridge. I had my golf clubs. I had a bag, and I had another bag, and I had my backpack. That bridge was closed too. I said, all right, just let me off here. I'll walk across the bridge. So I had all my stuff, and I walked. It was just me and maybe one other guy ahead of me was walking across, and then hordes of people from New York coming into Queens. This way. We were walking that way. They were on the road coming this way. I went, Jesus God, what's going on? And so I get to the east side, and it was like the day the earth stood still. Everybody was out on the street, from getting out of their buildings because they had to leave their buildings and standing around. Now, I lived on 24th and 9th Avenue, between 9th and 10th.
Mm-hmm.
I walked with my bags all the way home from 59th Street, from the east side all the way to the west side. Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Okay, so that was that experience. And then, of course, I get a call as soon as I get there. Show's canceled tonight.
Right.
I said we'll keep you posted. Well, then all of Broadway, Yahtzee and everything, everybody decided let's try to keep the theater open.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it was either a week later or maybe just Thursday. I don't know. I don't remember now. But a week later, let's say, we started doing the shows again. Everybody took half salary, just to bring people in so that and families of military and families of people who in the towers could come to see the show and all that kind of stuff.
Right.
What was it like? I am an old sentimental thing because it's hard for me not to cry about it, but we were doing Music Man, and we did 76 trombone. And at the end of the thing, we had an American flag come down, and then we all sang "God Bless America." I could not hold it together.
Mm-hmm.
Could not hold it together. It was just too much.
Yeah.
But we did that every night. Eventually I was able to get through it. But Robert Sean and me, we would drive our bikes down. And as we drove our bikes down home after the show. And we would see the World Trade Center as we got close.
Yeah.
But it wasn't there anymore. And there were the two lights.
Right. Right.
It was just
chilling.
Yeah. It was just a very gut-wrenching time, and also in a strange way, a beautiful time because all of New York came together.
Yeah. Feels like all of America came together.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, New Yorkers were just, there was just this bond that we had at that point. And the show ran to the end of the year. And then, of course, I was a little pissed off because when I joined the company, they said, "Joel, you have to take half salary." And I had my agent negotiate a pretty good salary for me. But they said, "No, you have to take half salary because everybody took half before we opened the show. Everybody took half salary before we opened."
What?
Because they wanted to make sure these were our producers, right?
Sure.
It was the Dodgers actually. Mm. And so I took half salary for the first 8 weeks. I said to my agent, I said, "Hey, why do you even negotiate for me if I'm going to take half?"
Right.
And then I went for a few months, and then, of course, we all had to take half salary again, because of this. But other shows stopped taking half salary, and they got paid full, except for our show, except for the Dodgers. So anyway, yeah, I'm complaining again, but
No.
That was a business thing that I was really upset. I said, I hardly made any money that we negotiated. You know that, Sheldon? He said, well, I don't know. So
Crazy.
we went to, like, I think the first week in January, and we closed.
Right.
But
Which seems like it happened to a lot of shows because of 9/11.
oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Because there was really mostly New Yorkers who were coming to see the shows at that rate.
Right, but people did come back. People
Yeah.
came back to the theater
In droves.
Yeah, but I will always be like, feel so lucky to have done that show.
Yeah.
Fucking Marcellus in Music Man.
Yeah.
Man.
Yeah. It's awesome.
It's
And
like
that production and that, that capacity.
It was
what
like,
theater was it at?
that was at the Neil Simon, I think.
Okay,
it was
gotcha.
on 52nd Street.
Gotcha.
That was another pinch me moment.
Yeah.
I was pinching myself on stage.
Yeah, of course. I want to ask you about. I'm gonna do a little jump. I always find this niche little thing, and I found this niche little thing, this niche little show that I don't think you've been asked very much about, but I want to talk a little bit about it. And it's called Kid Victory. And this was a show that you did 10 years ago at the Vineyard Theater, and this was, I believe, one of the few, if maybe one of the only, that Kander did without Fred Ev. This is a John Kander piece, Kander and Pierce. And tell me a little bit about Kid Victory for those who don't know what it is.
Wow. Well, it's a story about an abduction of a young boy by a guy who was, sort of his older man friend who they used to go fishing together. I'm going with the plot right now. And,
sure.
And he abducts him and he ties him up in his basement.
Crazy.
Yeah. And it kind of has a little bit to do with that, like Stockholm syndrome, where a person bonds with their captor, that kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
But it's also about a very the boy is from a very, very Midwest religious family that is extremely, repressive in that thing. Even though it's a nice family. The mother, it was played by Karen Ziemba, who was brilliant, and the mother and the father were very religious. The father was kind of like kept silent. I wish. Please forgive me. Names are not good. I'm not remembering the actor's name who plays it. So we can fix that for me.
Yeah. I'll figure it out.
See, this is what I was freaking out before I even came here. I said, Joel, because, the brain goes...
No, please. We've had it many a time.
I don't want to tell my age, but I'm up there. Okay. The kid grew up in a kind of a very religious background. It's not specific, but it's a Christian,
right,
a home and stuff like that. And we had the roles that I got to play a bunch of different characters. Mm-hmm. We were sort of like an everyman kind of chorus that did a lot of different things, different characters. And I loved it. I thought it was really great. Although I don't know. I'm not sure about the point of the whole story.
Sure.
Because it's. Are we celebrating this? Is it okay? I mean,
sure.
Because the guy, he fell in love with the man. The young boy falls in love with the man, and so are we promoting? Underage male.
Interesting.
Yeah. I mean, I'm sure they would say no. Of course, we're not promoting it, but
no.
But there was the family, or the mother at least, was set up kind of like in the villain role.
Interesting.
And the father was kind of like, he finally finds his voice at the end of the show. And bonds with the boy. But he didn't bond with the boy, I think, the whole life of the boy, because he couldn't stand up to the mother.
Interesting.
And it was a similar thing, I guess, to, The Rebel Without a Cause. Remember that
Yeah.
The father was weak.
Yeah,
The
sure.
mother was very domineering.
Right.
And had that kind of feel for it. Liesl Tommy, the director, was phenomenal to work with. I loved every minute of working with her. We did like 2 weeks of table reading. That's it. Before we even started blocking.
Wow.
You know?
That's crazy.
We went through the script, and we took a lot of time. We'd stop on things. What are your thoughts about that?
Yeah.
I mean, and you want my opinion? Like that
Yeah,
kind of thing.
yeah.
She's brilliant. I mean, and for that, I love her. I don't think she thinks I love her, but I love her. I do. She's very, very, talented director and very, very smart. One of the smartest people I've ever worked with.
Yeah. Interesting.
Yeah.
The reason why I brought that show up in particular is because it's a John Kander piece from 2017. Yes. And it also feels in the vein, not quite stylistically when I was watching stuff of it, but like in the vein of like that Dear Evan Hansen era where it was like, it came out the same year, So and I didn't know that about the abduction, because in all the plot synopsis that's online, it's always like a kid resurfaces after being missing for a year, and that's kind of like what it says. And then it'll say, so I didn't know about anything with the abduction, but it's like, this kid resurfaces after having been missing for a year, and the whole musical is kind of unraveling what happened to him over the course of that year.
That's true, and I could see where they wouldn't want to give it away.
Sure.
The details of it.
Sure.
But I didn't say, and I have to say this, I think it's some of the most beautiful music that
beautiful music
John Kander has ever written.
Yeah.
And his presence in rehearsals, and his work with David Loud, who was the music director and arranger, who I worked with originally on And the World Goes Round.
Oh, cool.
He is a genius too.
Yeah.
David Loud is brilliant.
Yeah.
And I talk about love. I have nothing but love for him as well as Susan and Scott. And but no, I think just like breathtaking music, I thought.
Yeah. And talk a little bit about Kander, because I guess I didn't ask you quite about that in Steel Pier, but everyone who talks about John Kander only has the greatest of things to say about working with John Kander.
Well, probably the nicest guy you could ever meet. He was such a sweetheart. Such a humble guy. Very, very much. He would even say, "I don't understand anything about all this show busy stuff." Just a really beautiful soul.
Yeah.
And John and I have had a kind of I feel a really kind of a connection. There was a young man who was one of the rehearsal pianists and on And the World Goes Round, especially on the road. And he was the pianist on the road for a while, but he got sick with AIDS and eventually had to pass. And John and I were sitting next to each other at the memorial.
Yeah.
And there was a moment where the family was, trying to make it very much in a similar way to Kid Victory, to make it a religious moment, and that he was a devout Christian and all kind of thing, and
sure.
downplaying the fact that he was even gay,
Mm-hmm.
And John was really angry at that. It's one of the things he just hated, because he said he was from a Midwestern kind of upbringing with that kind of sensibility, and I was sitting next to him, and of course, you know me, I cry like that, I was just completely blubbering like a total fool, and we shared that kind of moment together. And when we were doing Kid Victory, we also rode the C train downtown, and we were big fans of the C train because you can get on the C train, if you don't switch over to the Express, there's hardly anybody on it, in the middle, like in the morning, in the middle of the day.
Sure.
And he said, "Love the C train." Me
Yeah.
too. And we'd get off at Union Square because it was at the Vineyard Theater.
Yeah. Yeah. That's special. We have a tradition on the podcast where we always manifest a dream guest. We always ask our guests to manifest someone for us. And we've been very lucky. We've had a couple of them on. Like Susan Stroman was a dream guest and Jerry Zaks was a dream guest. So I'm going to ask you to manifest someone for us to have on.
Oh. Well, before I do that, I wanted to say in this whole time, I did not mention Jerry Orbach.
Oh, yeah.
Jerry Orbach was, to me, one of the greatest guys I'd ever worked with. I have to say that. He was there every night, never missed a show on 42nd Street, hardly ever. And also when I had my first audition for Law and Order, he saw me picking up my sides and he said, "Oh yeah, I'll see you on the set." So he made he was instrumental in me getting on my first Law and Order. So I have to say that. So who would you? There's more about Jerry too, but I'll maybe the next time. Who would I conjure for you?
Yeah.
Gosh.
But it doesn't. It's someone living, obviously.
Yes, of course. Yeah. That's why. So let's bring Jerry back.
Yeah, right.
Let's see. Oh wow. Well, I mean, in terms of amazing people, gosh, who'd be really great is Dorothy Stanley. Do you know Dorothy?
Vaguely, I know the name.
Dottie Stanley and I, we were in the original 42nd Street together. 10 years later, we were in Showboat together. She played my wife in Showboat.
Okay, that's how I know the name.
Yeah, and 10 years later, she played Parthy to my Captain Andy in Florida because we did Showboat down in Florida together.
The same version?
A similar version.
Sure.
Yeah.
Wow.
And let's see. And then we also did another show together. I can't. Oh, we did Billy Elliot on tour.
Oh, together. Cool. Very cool.
Yeah. And I absolutely love her. And she, I'm sure, has
great stories. Yeah. I would love to chat with her.
Yeah. I mean, you won't be disappointed. I know that.
Yeah.
Maybe another person would be, it went out of my head again. Shoot. Oh, well, I don't know if you tried, and I don't know where he is these days.
Yeah.
But Jerry Zaks, I think Jerry Zaks.
We had Jerry Zaks on.
You did?
Okay. Yeah, which we're very lucky to, and he was a dream guest actually.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, no, we were very lucky to have him on a couple months ago, and he's the best.
Have you had Karen?
He's the best.
On?
No, but I'm reaching out to her.
Yeah.
I would love to chat with Karen too.
I'm sure has a. She was in the. We were both understudies in 42nd Street.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't know that.
And then she moved into the role.
Oh.
And I remained an understudy. Damn it. But then 10 years later, I wound up doing "And the World Goes Around" with her off Broadway and then on tour.
And Steel Pier.
And Kid
Victory.
Yeah. So it's a similar thing like to Dottie, Karen. Yeah.
How people kind of travel with you in a certain capacity.
Yeah.
I want to ask you, we started the podcast by asking you who was your I Want to Be Like You when you were a kid.
Yeah.
And we want to conclude the podcast by asking you who is your I Want to Be Like You now. And it could be anyone. It could be someone in your life. It could be whoever you'd like.
Oh, gosh. Well, it's always been my dad. My dad knows that. But let me think of somebody.
No, you could say your dad is a more than feasible answer.
Yeah. Well, when he passed, I opted to say something as a memorial, and I got real tongue-tied. I didn't know what to think about it. And then my cousin Dickie came up to me. He said, "I'm sorry, I kind of got flustered up there." He said, "It was beautiful." And he said, He was just a guy. He was just a guy. He was a guy. I'm not talking about a guy, I'm not talking about, he was a guy.
Yeah.
A guy who tried to do his best, learned things, went with his instincts.
Mm.
And, it was great.
Yeah.
It was great. So, yeah, I want to be like him.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. And I want you to know, I've told you this off camera, but I want to mention it on too. Like we just finished this experience. We got to do this show together and it was such a blast and a crazy show and fast experience, but it was such a privilege to get to do it with you. And there were moments where I was doing, it was particularly, there's a moment in the show where they, think my character did it and they're accusing my character of doing the murder and committing the murder and whatnot. And so I'm on the ground and I'm and I remember I'm like looking down and Rob's like, so you're gonna kind of cockroach crawl to the back and whatever. And I just look up and I see you and you go, and your walking stick, and the stick is like in my face and I'm like looking at you and I'm like, oh, and I hear the laughs and I was like, it was one of my favorite parts of the night, every night, because we as an ensemble were all together, but then you and me kind of had like a moment together where we locked eyes and we held, and the audience laughed, and it was just like, the part I'm talking about, yeah, and yeah, it was such a privilege to get the chance to do it with you, and I hope we get the chance to do something in some capacity again.
Well, that means
a
a great deal to me. You know how I feel about you and about all that cast.
Thank you. Yeah,
you are all just like phenomenally talented and just so impressive. I was like blown away. I really was blown away by how great you guys were and how professional you all were. I almost, not to sully that moment, but not sully, but to diffuse it in any way. I did feel like overwhelmed. I came into first rehearsal without really a full understanding of how much I had to learn in it.
Right.
And we did the read through. I went, oh, I was shell-shocked.
Yeah, I was too.
Yeah.
I didn't quite realize how much you had to. I was shell-shocked for you.
Yeah.
And for those who don't know, Joel was playing the chairman and I had played Neville in The Mystery of Edwin Drood.
Yeah, and, I had seen the production, loved it back in the 80s,
Sure.
And I go, oh, this would be great to be a part of. And then I wish I had gone to Lincoln Center like you did and watched it to realize, oh my God, I got a lot to learn. And I would have asked for the script like a couple of weeks in
Much
advance.
earlier, sure.
So...
Sure.
The whole time I felt it was catch up time for me.
Yeah.
The whole rehearsal period, I got to catch up. And,
Right.
I got to learn it. I can't luxuriate in anything that I think I know. I couldn't luxuriate in it and say, oh, I'm going to refine that. No, I couldn't do that. I had to just go through the whole thing and make sure that I got it right, because the chairman, he propels the story forward.
Yeah.
He's
setting the stage for everything.
Exactly. So you have to know what's coming up next. And I have to be honest. The first week I said, what's next? What the hell's next? Honestly, I don't know if it came off. I hope I
I think you did a great job at masking it when it came down to it. And even when you did lose your place, there were moments where the audience was still with you so much. And there was never a stone cold, oh my God, what is going on type of moment.
Oh,
I had a couple of those.
No, yeah, a couple of times I didn't try to hide it. I said, okay, I don't know what's going on or something.
Sure,
like that.
sure.
But yeah, I even now that it's over, of course, we all have like an aftermath of a show. I said,
yeah,
gosh, there's something missing in my life. I want to keep doing the show.
Me too.
Yeah,
me too.
And so I've been going through that the last week or two.
Yeah, me too.
Yeah, it's funny, but this show in particular, I said, God, we should have had more performances.
I know, and I wish I would. It's funny, like in retrospective, like I've been the last 2 weeks since we've closed, I've just been like running nonstop. But I've taken a couple moments. I've had a couple moments where I've been like, gosh, that was so great. And I really wish we could have had some more time with it, because it was such a privilege to get to do that show.
Oh.
And you're right, with the people that we did, it was one of the best casts I've ever been a part of, where everyone felt no one was a weak link, you know, and you were just constantly trying to match one another and find each other's beats and create moments with each other. It was wonderful.
I thought that, you know, everybody was game to just make it work and have fun with it and meet the level of energy.
Yeah.
Which was what Rob was saying, you know, let's keep that.
Right.
Let's keep, you know, don't let it lag. And we did it. I thought we did it. And
we certainly did. Yeah.
You know, it was a great thing, you know, for me and
and I want you to know, everyone, when I would tell somebody, hey, our chairman is Joel Blum, they would be that much more excited about seeing it, you know?
Wow. Well,
so, you know, and I think that they'll feel the same way about this episode, which is another reason why I wanted you on here,
well,
you know?
buddy,
So-
I think it's been a pleasure and
Absolute pleasure.
And, you know, I hope you got a few things on.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Thank you for doing this, Joe Blum.
Thank you.
Woo-hoo! I Want to Be Like You with Elbi Cespedes is produced by Elbi and Angelina Cespedes. Special thanks to Christian Cespedes, Vincenzo Salvatore Cakes, and of course, Joel Blum.